I have been secretly mailing my toenail clippings to my childhood bully once a month for 11 years. And I started doing this all because this bully was mean to me when I was 12 years old. And now, after self-reflecting, I'm kind of wondering if this is a weird thing to do or if I'm justified in any way to get this kind of revenge. Because this is practically a part of my routine. And I seriously don't have any plans of stopping anytime soon. Here's how it all got started. Okay, I want to start off by saying that yes, this is very weird. But I've also never told anyone about it, so here we go. When I was in middle school, there was this kid who I will call Marcus, who made my life miserable. Like, not just like the regular type of bullying you might encounter. This kid was creative about it. One time, he convinced half our grade that I'd crap myself at a sleepover that I wasn't even at. Another time, he found out I had a crush on this girl who I will call Emily, and he asked her out specifically to tell me about it in detail. Just really cruel stuff constantly for like 3 years. Anyways, fast forward to 2014, where I'm in college and I haven't thought about Marcus in a while. I'm scrolling Facebook and I see his mom posted something about a garage sale, and her address was right there in the post. And so in that moment, I screenshot it. I don't really know why I did that, I just did. So that night, I'm clipping my toenails, watching TV, and then I look at the little pile and I look at my phone with the screenshot, and I just thought to myself, wait a second, I could do something with this. So I put them in an envelope with no note, no return address, and I mailed it the next day. And you know what? I felt pretty stupid immediately after that, but I figured that was it. I got it out of my system, whatever. But then a month later, I'm clipping my toenails again. And you know what? I went ahead and I just did it all over again. Now, that was 11 years ago, and I have not missed a single month. I've mailed them from different cities when I'm traveling for work, and I honestly just don't even think about it much anymore. It's just part of my routine now, where in my head, I go, okay, it's the first of the month. I need to pay my rent, and then I need to mail the toenails. The thing is, I have no idea if he opens them or if he throws them away immediately, or if his wife opens the mail and has been hiding it from him for years. I have genuinely no idea, and honestly, I don't really care. Like, I'm not doing this for a reaction. I think I just like knowing that somewhere out there these envelopes exist. I looked him up recently and he's got a wife and kids now. He's got a nice house and he seems happy. And honestly, good for him, I guess. But guess what? I found his new address when they moved a few years ago, and that literally took me like 10 minutes. Sometimes I wonder if I should stop. I have a decent job and a wife too, and normal life stuff. But also, once a month, I mail my toenails to a man that was mean to me when I was like 12 years old, which really makes me think that maybe there's something just a little bit wrong with me. Okay, I gotta be honest, this is probably like the grossest and weirdest way of getting revenge on someone I've ever heard of in my life. That is seriously strange. Like, dude, I don't even know what to say to that. Like, it's one thing to send it for like a few months and be like, I showed him. But this is to a level I did not even think was possible. Like, dude, you're going on for 11 years. Like, this person is literally trimming their toenails every month and being like, okay, I gotta mail this off to Marcus. Like, bro, I don't know about you, but even like a year of that seems a little excessive. But you've been at this for like 11. Like, bro, that is a little extreme if you ask me. So I guess good for the original poster. I guess they're getting it out of their system for the way they got treated as a kid. But either way, this is really funny and it's also really weird. And the fact that this has become a part of your routine, in my opinion, is even stranger.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother lets my niece repeatedly bother me while I'm trying to study, as she's constantly banging on my door and making so much noise that it is literally impossible for me to get anything done. But after this most recent incident, I really feel like I want to pull my hair out, because she was super obnoxious today and I honestly don't want to deal with that ever again. Here's what's going on. So my sister gave her child to my mother for the day because apparently my niece said that she wanted to come over, but it wasn't planned, so I wasn't expecting her to be there. I had told my mom that I was planning on studying all day, so she knew that I was in my room doing work. Well, I was in the middle of it, and then I heard someone open my door, and my niece came in and said she needed to hide, which is something she does when she comes into my room sometimes, so she jumped into my bed and went under the sheets. Now, I don't swear at my niece, but it was really taking everything in me to not lose it, because my mother was nowhere to be seen and just let her run upstairs over to me. Well, I didn't engage with her, and I just took her back downstairs, and I probably looked as if I wanted to kill someone because I was very pissed off. She said she would keep her downstairs, so I went to my room, and then I heard my niece say that she wanted to come to my room again, and I could hear her basically having a tantrum because she wasn't allowed to. Maybe another hour went by, and I then heard her upstairs again, this time shouting my name, where she then came to my door and started knocking and banging on the door, shouting for me over and over again. And once again, my mother was nowhere to be seen. Well, I just flat out ignored her, and I felt like a jerk for not responding, but after like 10 minutes, I guess she got tired and just went back down.
down. It's insanely frustrating because nobody seems to care if she comes to my room when I've made it pretty clear that I don't want her there, and no one does anything to stop it, which I know they can't really, but they could at least properly discipline her, or maybe just come up and get her and not leave it to me to bring her back down when she does. It's all super annoying and I just don't know what to do anymore. Okay, I don't know what your room is like, but I really hope your room has like a lock on it, because holy crap, I would lock that door so fast and then throw some noise-canceling headphones on and just be done with it. This kind of behavior, especially from like a 3-year-old, is one of those things that you either have to correct it or just ignore it. And in my opinion, in this scenario, it's not your job to correct anything. Your mom should be babysitting the kid, not you. So hopefully you can find some kind of like distance between this garbage, because if I was trying to study and I had someone coming up there and banging on the door and just distracting me the entire time, I would also be pretty pissed off and probably losing my mind. A board of trustees at a charity I used to work for fired not only me, but also my other coworker, as they said they were trying to cut costs, but in reality, there was just a bunch of work politics going on in the background. But thankfully, my previous manager got revenge against these people in a way that they will truly never forget, forcing them to close down permanently after he finally quit. And it's honestly super satisfying to see, because these people really sucked. Here's what happened. During COVID, I worked for a small Christian charity that ran a day center for adults with learning disabilities. When in-person attendance stopped, the charity started bleeding money, and the council funding barely covered the gap. There were 6 staff in total, including the manager. When the board decided to save money, they made 2 people redundant, me and another young employee. Both of us had been there for around 2 years and handled most of the actual day-to-day work. Now, the people that stayed included the minister's wife, who's also chair of the board of trustees, as well as someone who had been a part of the church for decades, and someone they couldn't let go because they had kids. And eventually, we were taken to a trustee's house just to be told that we were losing our jobs. No human resources, no neutrality, just church politics. Well, here's where it all backfired. Our manager, who I will call Alan for the sake of the story, was genuinely one of the best people I've ever worked for. Crucially, while the trustees governed, Alan controlled the finances and had personally invested a large amount of his own money to keep the charity afloat. So while the board thought they were cutting the cost, Alan quietly ensured that we received proper severance, meaning that I left with $6,000 and the other employee received about $4,000 based on role complexity. Well, once the news got out, the trustees were furious. They stopped speaking to us entirely during our notice period, and Alan even offered that I could work from home, but I chose to come into the office anyways, smiling, doing my job, and being very visibly non-religious in a space where that clearly bothered them. There was no shouting, no scenes, just pure joy from me. Well, fast forward to about a year and a half later and the charity closed. And while 2 years after that they did reopen, within 6 months they closed again. And in case you're wondering why, it's because Alan eventually quit. After the way the trustees treated staff and how they handled our redundancies, he was just done. Without him and without his financial backing, the organization couldn't function. I'm still in contact with him today, and it turns out the people they tried to cut to save money were never the problem in the first place, which honestly makes me feel better about my own exit from the company. Okay, I love this so much because, dude, these board members clearly didn't understand why this place was staying afloat, and it started and ended with Alan, like through and through. So yeah, it does suck that you lost your job, but from the sounds of it, they were doomed from the start. And that's literally just karma working its magic. Like, these people sound like they definitely deserve to be humbled, and thankfully Alan was there to make sure that gets taken care of. Am I the jerk for leaving the house to stay with my boyfriend after my sister tried to force me to take care of her child? Because ever since I helped her out like this one time, she has slowly but surely forced me into essentially becoming the full-time caregiver for her daughter. And I'm honestly super frustrated at this entire situation, and I just don't know what to do next. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm a 20-year-old female and I do not like kids. I never have, and I don't enjoy taking care of them or playing with them or being responsible for them. And I've always been clear about this with my family. Now, my sister has a 5-year-old daughter and I love her, but loving someone doesn't mean I want to be a caregiver for the thing I hate the most. Anyways, a few months ago, my sister started asking me to help her with her daughter. At first, it was just small things, watching her for an hour, staying with her while my sister ran errands, and I did not love it, but I agreed because I felt pressured. But slowly, it turned into more and more. I was then expected to babysit multiple days a week for hours. I had to feed her and play with her and help her shower and put her to sleep. My sister
sister never asked anymore. She just assumed that I would do it and then yell at me when I didn't. Whenever I tried to say no, she would say things like, "Oh, you're young, you have free time, you live at home anyways." Or she would guilt trip me by saying that she has family and I should just help them and then just blame me if I don't. I felt trapped and exhausted. And even though I hated every minute of it, I still did it because every time I complained, my family told me I was being selfish and I just felt like a massive jerk. Recently, I told everyone that I had planned a trip with my friends and it was already paid for and planned weeks in advance. And you know what? I was excited because it was the first time in a long while that I felt like I had something for myself. Well, wouldn't you guess it, my sister immediately got angry. She said, "Okay, well, what am I supposed to do with my daughter then?" It was here that I reminded her that I never agreed to be her full-time babysitter. And when I said that, she exploded on me. She said I was abandoning her and being irresponsible. She told me that I should cancel my trip and take care of my niece instead. But I immediately said no. And that turned into a huge argument in and of itself. She called me names and said that I was immature and heartless. And my parents, of course, sided with her and said I should step up and help my sister out. I felt overwhelmed and honestly, I was just completely done. And I knew if I stayed around them, I really would snap at them. So I packed a bag and I left the house to stay with my boyfriend for a few days. And now they're just completely furious with me. They say I ran away from responsibility and that I chose my boyfriend and my friends over my own family. My sister says that I betrayed her and that she cannot rely on me anymore. So now I feel guilty for my niece and I feel like I'm the bad person in this situation. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, I can't stand family like this because this is irrational. These people are really trying to be like, "Wow, you're betraying me by going on vacation. You can't go on vacation. I need you to be a full-time babysitter for free. Why are you running away from your responsibilities?" And it's like, dude, what are we talking about right now? I am not responsible for this child. It is not my kid. I helped you out one time, all because I felt pressured, and definitely not because I wanted to. So for any of these people to be like guilt-tripping you and acting crazy like this, like for me, I would look at them and say, "Good, don't rely on me. I'm unreliable and I don't want to help out." Like maybe you just need to be clear and not give in to anything they say because it's obvious they're just going to take advantage of you. They're going to guilt trip you if you say no, and it's just going to be a mess because your entire family has proven to be super toxic if you say no to them. And that is absolutely not something you should ever have to deal with. My entitled coworker is one of the most annoying people on the planet, as they're constantly saying and doing things that get under my skin and cause me a lot of problems in the workspace. But now I've started to get some petty revenge on him by not only inconveniencing him in like the most obvious ways possible, but also by completely ignoring him and pretending like he doesn't exist. Because this guy is super obnoxious to deal with and I simply cannot take it any longer. Here's what I currently have to deal with. Okay, to start this all off, I have this coworker who, for the sake of this story, I will call Jim. And let me tell you something, Jim is a massive jerk. Jim likes to hide and dodge work, and he also likes to spread fake stories about people in our workplace. Jim likes to make inappropriate jokes and comments, and is somehow able to get away with it despite multiple complaints to management, including 2 from me personally. He also likes to stand uncomfortably close to people and just hover, or even lean in when standing near someone sitting. We work on a large property, and there are multiple golf carts roaming throughout the day, and Jim likes to park extremely close to the other people's carts and block them in. Well, Jim has recently been focusing his complaints onto me. I try to stay clear of all the drama, but he started complaining about small things, or even just antagonizing me on purpose. And I really think it bothers Jim that he can't get a rise out of me. Well, because of all of this, I've started a shadow campaign against Jim. I've removed literally everything from the cart he typically uses, paperwork, tools, etc. And it's all company property, by the way, so it's not like he really uses any of it. Then the next day, I saw him looking in the storage compartments and in the bed of the cart, bewildered about where things were. The cart is older and you can leave the ignition on, but still remove the key so that it's always on. And this type of cart has a universal key, so I'll use mine to switch the ignition off every time I see it parked all by its lonesome. And I like to picture Jim sitting down and flooring it, and then having to figure out why his cart didn't zoom away. Oh, and one more thing. I completely quit acknowledging Jim entirely. I don't look his way, I don't smile, I don't say hello, I literally give him nothing. One day, he rolled up next to me looking ready for a chat, but I watched him and waited until the very moment that his cart rolled back slightly as it came to an eventual stop. And then I just took off. I didn't say a word. I was just gone with Jim sitting in the middle of the road behind me. And if you can't tell already, I think it's probably pretty obvious that I really don't like Jim.
Oh man, we've all had that coworker, haven't we? The one that's like grating on your skin, and despite the multiple complaints, they still don't get fired somehow. Like, holy crap, I can't stand these kinds of people. Because 9 times out of 10, at least in my experience, the gyms of any office are typically like related to the owner or something like that. They get away with crap like this all the time, they can never be like reprimanded, and it's kind of one of those people that you just have to like tolerate and get along with even if you hate it. So yeah, I don't blame you for avoiding Jim, and I think if I was in your shoes, I would do a lot more than just like turn his card off when he isn't looking, because this guy sounds like a jerk and I would hate to have to deal with him. Today, I got some much needed revenge against my lazy colleague, as I quite literally got her fired for being lazy and not doing her job, which by the way was completely deserved, because she literally wasn't doing anything and it made my life a lot harder. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was an administrative assistant supporting 5 different professionals. I was swamped with work and time was running out, so I handed it off to someone who I will call Lazy Susie, who only supported like 3 people and had nothing to do. But then 2 days before the deadline, she dumped it right back on my desk, saying that she had been too busy to get around to it. I knew this wasn't true because her department had nothing on at the time, and for me, this was the last straw. I wanted to get her fired. I went round to the 3 executives that she supported, and I said to them, I'm doing a review of administrative workflow. What admin tasks do you have outstanding? And their answer was, well, none right now. And this wasn't unusual. Theirs was an ebb and flow kind of unit, swamped one week, twiddling their thumbs the next. But our unit was busy most of the time. I had worked overtime to get it done. In fact, I had previously spoken with my manager about being overloaded. So I went to her office and I used that information about no assignments in the pipeline in that other unit to make the case for revising the administrative workflow. At the Monday morning staff meeting, our manager asked why I had to use overtime to get the work done. And I just said, well, ask Susie. That work had been on her desk and then she brought it back to me. Susie then said, well, it's because I've been too busy. And honestly, it was perfect. She trapped herself in a lie. My manager then said to her, may I ask, doing what for who? Because as far as I know, you were completely available. Did any of you have any tasks assigned to Susie last week? They then all looked at each other, and I could see that none of the 3 people knew that there were others that had also tasked her with any other assignments. Susie then blushed crimson red and stared at her shoes. She had just got caught lying to her boss in front of all of us. It was excruciating and everybody winced. I knew that lazy Susie not helping out when she had nothing to do would piss off our manager to no end. Eventually, interviews for Susie's replacement began the next week, and eventually she was gone by the end of the month. Okay, I love this because holy crap, if I'm working a job and I'm working in an office, and I know for a fact my coworker could help me get this done, but instead they're sitting there saying, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm too busy to help out. That not only makes me want to go just a little bit insane, but it will also especially piss me off when I know for a fact it's not true, dude. Like, bro, you are not as busy as me. You easily could pick this up and get this done if you really wanted to, but instead of doing that, you're just gonna sit there and be like, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm unavailable, and then try to dump it back on my desk? Like, bro, I don't think so. So with all that in mind, truly good for you. This is some fantastic revenge, because Susie could have easily taken care of this, but she chose not to. And if someone's gonna act like that under the stress that you're currently experiencing, then they definitely have gotta go. Would I be the jerk for wanting to stop paying rent for my ex-girlfriend? All because by the first of the month, I'm planning to move out. Because right now, she is literally making this entire process a lot harder than it needs to be. And I'm starting to second guess my decision, and I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I broke up with my girlfriend after 2 years, and I'm gonna be moving out within the first month. Now, we agreed that I would help her with the rent for 2 extra months, as the lease requires 3 months after terminating the contract, but it's important to note that I'm not on the lease. Legally, I'm not obligated to pay, but I have been helping her out in good faith in an attempt to keep things peaceful and respectful. But now things are starting to get out of hand. For example, she's made some really unfair financial demands. Like, she's got over $500 worth of furniture, and I had to fight hard to get my fair share. Also, while living together, she made me pay an extra $50 a month, and she still demands that I pay this. She's also demanding 80% of the value of some dining furniture, which was originally from my parents, just because she put cloth on the chairs. And this feels completely unfair to me. She's also not appreciating the rent that I've been paying and is being really petty about everything. It's starting to feel like my generosity is being taken advantage of. I've asked for the lease and contract, but she didn't want me to have it because she is the sole partner tied to it. Up until now, I've been staying calm, trying to de-escalate, and compromising a lot, but she's been difficult, and it feels like she's not attempting to make this a quiet and respectful split. Now, I really do respect her. She was a good partner, but I'm questioning if I should stop paying the rent now. She will be extremely mad, and I feel like I've already done more than enough, but I also don't want to give up on being the bigger person by turning into the petty one regarding this matter. So seriously, what do you think? Should I confront her, or should I just suck it up for these next 3 months? Because right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would not be paying anything that she's demanding. I would get my stuff, I would get out, and I would block her. You do know you're breaking up with your girlfriend, right? Like, this is not your wife. And the fact that she's making all these weird demands and being so petty and weird towards you is like more than enough reason for me personally to be like, yeah, I'm not paying for any of this. I'm not on the lease, you're making weird demands, and you refuse to even show me the lease. So no, I don't trust you, I don't want to pay anymore, and I'm out of here. Sorry, see you later. And that's just me. Like, I don't know the situation you're in. You know the nuances of it way more than I do, but from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like she was a very good girlfriend. And if that's the case, then guess what? I'm going to be an even worse ex. I'm going to cut and run, and I'm going to say see you later while like moonwalking into the distance. And honestly, the fact that she doesn't want to give you the contract so you can see exactly what's written on there, which by the way, she could be completely lying to you about everything, like that alone is more than enough for me to be like, okay, I'm going to wipe my hands of this situation and not look back. This is crazy talk. Because otherwise, you have no proof that any of this is real. And yes, just to reassure you, she is absolutely taking advantage of you. She's tried to milk every single penny out of your pocket that she can possibly get, all before you finally leave and move out of her life. And I totally get it. Like, you're trying to be the better person. You're trying to be that guy that is like, okay, I want to maintain some kind of like mutual respect amongst the two of us. But my guy, she's not doing that. She's actively trying to screw you over. And she's literally trying to be like, oh, you're leaving? Okay, well, pay for my rent for 3 months before you go. Like, dude, what are we talking about? I got my own rent to deal with. We're not married. I'm not obligated to do this. I'm not on the lease. And if you're not going to show me the lease so I can see in writing that this is what we need to do, well then congratulations, I'm not paying for a thing. So that's personally what I would do. And if you did do that, I don't think you would be the jerk at all. Because based on what you're describing, your ex is being very toxic towards you. And you do not deserve to put up with that. And I really don't think you should be required to pay for any more rent because that sounds incredibly stupid. My spoiled, entitled sister demands that I pay for her wedding, including a $10,000 dress that she absolutely can't live without. But once I told her no and that I cannot afford that, she and the rest of my extended family have turned their backs on me, calling me selfish and unsupportive, and also calling me a jerk for not paying for the entire wedding. And at this point, I'm starting to feel guilty and incredibly lonely as my entire family has now cut me off. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 28-year-old female and I have a younger sister who's 25, and she is getting married next month. She has always been spoiled by our parents and expects everyone to cater to her whims. She is also very obsessed with having a lavish wedding, even though she and her fiance are not very well off. She asked me to be her maid of honor, which I agreed to, even though I don't really like her fiance. He is a rude and lazy guy who doesn't treat her very well, but she thinks that he is the love of her life. I tried to be supportive and help her with the wedding planning, but she was very demanding and unreasonable. She wanted me to do everything for her, from booking the venue to sending the invitations to choosing the flowers. She also expected me to pay for half of the expenses, which I refused to do. I told her that I would only pay for my own dress and accessories, and that she and her fiance should cover the rest. Well, when I said that, she was very angry with me and said that I was being selfish and unsupportive. She said that I owed her for being her sister and that I should help her have her dream wedding. She also said that she had already picked out a wedding dress that cost about $10,000 and that I should be the one to pay for it since she couldn't afford it. She actually said that it was the least I could do since I had a better job and more savings than her. Honestly, when she said this, I was shocked and appalled by her request. I told her that there was no way I was going to pay for her wedding dress or anything for that matter. I told her that she was being ridiculous and entitled and that she should live within her means. I also told her that her wedding dress was way too expensive and that she should look for something more affordable and practical. Well, she threw a tantrum and called me a horrible sister. She said that I was ruining her wedding and that she hated me. She then hung up on me and blocked me on all social media. She also told our parents and the rest of the family what happened, and unfortunately, they have all sided with her. They said that I was being stingy and mean, and that I should apologize to her and just pay for the dress. They said that it was my duty as her sister and maid of honor, and that I should make her happy on her special day. But you know what? I refused to do so. And now I
I'm being shunned by my entire family. They have all uninvited me from the wedding while also cutting off all contact with me. They said that I am no longer welcome in their lives and that they hope I regret my decision. Honestly, I don't think I did anything wrong, but I am starting to feel guilty and very alone. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I cannot believe that the extended family sided with your sister, because that is insane to me. First off, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your sister is insane for expecting you to pay for her wedding, let alone a $10,000 wedding dress. Like seriously, $10,000 for a wedding dress she's gonna wear once. Like, I don't know about you, but I am definitely not made of money where I can drop that at a moment's notice. So for anybody, let alone a sibling, to expect that from one of their older siblings, all under the guise of, oh, come on, you gotta make me happy. That is insane to me, and there's no way that's reasonable. Like, why is that falling squarely on your shoulders? Like, it seems pretty convenient that the rest of the family is siding with your sister, because that screams to me that they don't want to pay for that stupid dress either. They are all basically ganging up on you to try and force your hand so that you're the one that has to pay for the dress, because they know for a fact they can't handle that dress for a second. And if this really is bothering you that much, you just need to remember that aspect of all of this, because if you're not willing to pay for it, I can guarantee you they're not going to pay for it either. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would not give in to their weird guilt tripping for a second, because you know for a fact that none of them want to pay for that stupid dress, and they're only pressuring you in this way so that you can eventually cave and then give them some money. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not wanting my friend's boyfriend at my small wedding weekend? Because right now, I don't think my friend is totally getting it, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm going to have a phone call tonight with my friend to tell her that I don't want her boyfriend coming to my micro wedding. We were going to elope originally, but we do have some aging family members that we would really like to have there, as it would be meaningful. So we changed our plans and ended up making a very small list of our nearest and dearest. For context, last spring, I moved across the ocean to be with my fiance. We are having a very small micro-style wedding, and my friend was asking about it and sounded like she really wanted to attend. I then explained that there are no plus ones, meaning that you can't bring anybody with you, but if she could come along, that would be lovely. Well, apparently her boyfriend, who I've met maybe 2 times, has a thing about being left out, and she told me that. I asked her to just explain to him that no one gets a plus one, and at one point, I must have said something about money and why we were keeping it so small, and my friend really clung to that idea. A few days after she and I talked, I get the following text message. She said to me, "We both want to be there for you and your fiance at your wedding, and we've already set aside a budget for the year. We'll make the timeline work with our stuff. My boyfriend also says don't worry about the cost for after party expenses, because you're so important to me, and it's important that we're there for this big life event. We love you both so much, and I'm already looking at tickets and a train and lodging. Send me more details as you get them, and we're definitely going to be there." Well, when I saw this, I was panicking. I then said to her, "Wait, don't book anything yet. We haven't booked anything yet, but I will keep you updated." I then asked her straight up, "Did you talk to him about what I told you? It's people that we only know really well. Not that I don't want to get to know him, but it is a very small wedding with just a few of our closest people. Honestly, my heart is racing right now." Well, maybe I should have said something like, "No, you misunderstood. He is not welcome for the after parties or the weekend, as it's only going to be people that myself and my fiance are close to." But unfortunately, that's not what I said. My friend responded by saying that she won't book anything yet, and that they were just looking for price estimations. She then said that he would just sit out of the ceremony or the reception if that's the concern, and that it's more about traveling and being together. She said that he's been to weddings where his partners weren't invited, and he totally gets it, while also stating that they're gonna pay for themselves, and they don't mind if it's standing room only. She then closed out by saying that they want to be there to celebrate me and my fiance and our love. Well, I didn't respond for over a week, and then I texted her and said, "Can we schedule a phone call to talk about my wedding? I think I need to clarify some things." Now, here's the thing. The ceremony and the photos afterwards and the meal afterwards, it's all a special time for me, and I only want people that I'm close to for this event in my life. So honestly, am I the jerk for not wanting this boyfriend to show up? Because I'm going to be calling my friend to make sure that she understands what's actually happening, and at this point, I'm not sure how it's going to go down. No, you're definitely not the jerk. You made it very clear that there are no plus ones. You only want people there that you know and you're comfortable with, And it's not about the money. Like, I see what you mean when you referenced that earlier. Your friend is using this as some weird excuse just so she can bring along her boyfriend, but she is completely missing the part where you're like, wait, no, I don't want anyone besides you. No one's allowed to bring a guest of any kind. I mean, this is being referred to as a micro wedding. How can she not understand that you don't want a lot of people there that you don't know? So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you are completely justified telling her exactly how it is, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. My entitled mother doesn't respect my boundaries or conversations about them. And after I found out that she went through my room and reorganized everything without my permission, I can honestly say that I've hit my tipping point. And right now, I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, I'm a 20-year-old female and I'm a nurse, and I also live with my family. My mother has issues respecting boundaries and really pushed me to my limits yesterday. She loves a good, deep spring clean and reorganizing everybody's rooms, even if we don't agree with their opinions or suggestions. She doesn't communicate and she just does as she pleases. Now, I'm starting a new job and I had a full day of orientation yesterday. My room was clean and had been reorganized by me not even a week ago. So after I left, she goes and reorganizes my room, going through all of my personal items, through my wardrobe, and even going as far as throwing away sentimental things. I am very particular about the way my things are set up, and I hate when people go through my things and judge them. I come home and as I'm walking in, she tells me not to get mad. I said, don't give me a reason to get mad, and I won't. And then she tells me that she rearranged my room and my closet. I walk into the mess of my stuff being scattered and none of it where it was placed. So I got mad. But she said to me, isn't it better for space? I said she had no right to go through my things and to throw away things. I went on to say that this is a huge breach of my privacy and it's disrespecting my boundaries. She then starts to try and guilt trip me and gaslight me by sighing and then walking away to cry. And then she was waiting for me to apologize for getting mad. She then attempted an apology after dinner, which sounded so forced and unapologetic in every way, shape, and form. But I just ignored it because I did not see it as genuine. I went out with my friends for a couple of hours after that, and when I came back home, she was sitting on the couch crying at the TV. She apologized and said, don't hold this against me. I then asked her if she was actually sorry or whatever it was, just so I wouldn't resent her for it. But after I said that, she just started crying again. Well, today has been radio silence, except for a couple of snide remarks saying that she's apologized so many times, which simply isn't the case at all. And you know what? Honestly, I just can't take this anymore, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I have to agree with the original poster here. Their one space in the house was completely violated by their mom going in there without permission. Like, that's what this is really about. She went in there and moved everything around and reorganized your room, even though you literally cleaned and reorganized your room not even a week ago. Like, she had to have known that you did that already, right? Because if she didn't, then obviously she's completely blind and deaf. But even worse, if she did know that you reorganized your entire room, then she did that on purpose just to go through your stuff. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic and so uncalled for. Now, I don't know if there's an opportunity for you to put a lock on your door or anything like that, but I would definitely invest in some kind of like locking mechanism to keep your stuff safe. Even if that means literally putting your personal and sentimental items in like a physical safe of some kind, because what you're describing right now is a massive breach of trust. And if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be angry as well. Today, I messed up by trying to get into the wrong car, and as a result, I ended up scaring some poor college student. Here's what happened. So I want to start off with some needed backstory. I am a college student who has their own apartment in this basically college-only urbanization. Due to certain circumstances, my somewhat older uncles fell ill recently, and luckily they live in the same urbanization, being approximately an 8-minute walk away from my apartment. Unfortunately, my uncle got hospitalized a few days ago by being hard-headed, and my aunt, following my husband's example, refused to listen to the doctor's orders and needed to be hospitalized yesterday. They are doing better at the moment, but that's not the main issue at hand. You see, both of them live with my uncle's mom, who is my grandmother. I stayed with my grandmother all day yesterday after my aunt was hospitalized, but one of my cousins, thinking and understanding that college starts tomorrow and that I've got preparations to do, she insisted to take our grandmother with her to her place so I can go back to my apartment and finish my things up, while also accommodating the fact that my grandmother, who hasn't lived alone for several years now, doesn't have to stay the night alone. Now, as anybody that's tried to move an elderly person person from one place to another for an indefinite amount of time, you will know that this is not exactly the easiest thing to do. After some back and forth of solid conversation and coercion attempts, we settled on the plan that my grandmother would go with my cousin to her house for the night, but we'll come back the next day since my cousin has to pass by the house to go to her job anyways, and either myself or one of my neighbors, who is basically family at this point, would basically stay with my grandmother until my cousin left work and would then pick her up again, and this pattern would continue on until either my uncle or my aunt would be better enough to leave the hospital and continue their regular days at the house. Well, fast forward, and today was the first day of our plan. As usual, I wake up and do my regular morning routine, and after finishing up, I texted my cousin to check how things are and if everything is on schedule. But here's the thing, she did not answer the phone. Now, knowing how both my grandmother and my cousin can be, I figured that she was rushing things and unable to answer a text message, so I decided to give her a call instead. But even then, nobody answered the phone. This meant one of two things. Either she was talking with someone from her work, or her kid was being distracting with the phone from all the rushing chaos. And I would imagine on the first day of her morning routine, there would definitely be a lot of chaos. So I decide to wait and wait right up until it's about time that they should be getting near my place. So, not really having much of a choice, I start walking over to the house so I can take over and spend my day with grandma before I have to start taking shifts with one of the neighbors after starting college tomorrow. Now, as I'm getting there, I notice what I thought at the time was my cousin's van parked and running in front of the house. But if you remember, this is basically an urbanization where almost all the houses are actually hostels for college students. And under normal circumstances, the only people that are in that spot are either one of my cousins or me when I bring some stuff in my own car. The neighbors are either hostel owners or college students that both respect everybody's parking space, and we haven't ever really had any issues in that regard. Getting closer to the house, I notice that the gate is actually locked, and who I believe to be my cousin inside of her van, talking to somebody who I assume to be her work through the van's Bluetooth speaker. And this is the kind where it's like stupidly loud. Now, knowing that I don't have a key, I call out to my grandmother to tell her that my cousin locked the gate. But the issue is that my grandmother is always in one of two places in the house. She's either in her room or on the very back of the house where she will never hear me, or she's in the family room watching TV. Well, since the family room is closer to the front entrance, and she definitely didn't hear me there, I thought that she definitely had to be in her room. Not wanting to interrupt who I believe to be my cousin, who is still at this time in the van and talking to someone who I presumed was her work, I waved at her and I pointed at the locked gate while making a key gesture for her to catch on. Now, at this point, it's a good time to say my cousin's van has this thing where if the sun hits the windows at a certain way, from the outside of the car, you cannot see anything above a person's chest. So at this point, even though I'm a couple of feet away from the van, I don't actually see the face of the person in the driver's seat. I only see a female outline wearing a uniform and speaking on the phone while also moving her hands around. So I continue waiting next to the car. Then I hear the audible clicks of the locks when you lock and unlock a car from the inside, and her moving her hands towards the passenger seat, the one seat that is in front of me. Meanwhile, I was still unaware that this is in fact not my cousin, who is having a seemingly very important conversation about her work. I assume this was her way of saying, just grab the keys, I can't get them for you right now. So I did what anybody would do, and I tried to open the door. But as I put my hands on the handle and pulled it, I realized that it was locked. And that's when I see her face. And you know what? I have no idea who this girl was, and she has no idea who I am. The problem is that my dumb brain didn't catch up with what my eyes were looking at, and for a good 2 seconds with my hand still on the handle, I look at this girl the same way you stare at your computer when it's loading. After what seemed like an eternity, I immediately backed away from the car, confirmed my surroundings, and then I call my cousin, who once again doesn't answer her phone. So I end up calling cousin number 2, who's the sister of the cousin, and that's when she tells me that my other cousin didn't have work today, so it was unlikely that grandma was going to go back to my aunt's house today, and that she'll let me know if anything changes, but she was as surprised as me that I wasn't told about this. Well, immediately I thank her and I hang up after telling her to tell my uncles that I said hi, and proceeded to turn around and face the van, which is still there next to me, with the Bluetooth speaker phone call still running, mind you, and the shocked college freshman who was apparently moving in, because as mentioned before, I know all the neighbors around there, and I don't know who this lady is for a second. Keep in mind, I'm a fairly big guy coming in at about 6 foot and 200 pounds or something like that, so there's no way this looks good to me. I then proceed to awkwardly wave and say at the top of my lungs, "I am so sorry, I confused you with someone else," while also turning around and speed walking my way back to my apartment without waiting or noticing for any type of reaction. And honestly, I now feel like an idiot, and next time I go towards my cousin's car, I'm gonna make sure that it's actually her. Wow, that's an awful scenario, because seriously, I can see that happening. People get mixed up, they see a car that looks like a car they think they know, and then they try to get into said car and it's all just a mess. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, and hopefully things work out with your family, because what you described absolutely sounds like a mess, and I don't think this is a mistake that you want to make twice. Am I the jerk for loving my girlfriend too much in public? Because as a result, my stepbrother's girlfriend has just broken up with him, and he is now blaming it all on me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. My girlfriend and I have been dating for about 2 years, and words can't describe how much I love her. She's awesome every single day, and I honestly feel lucky that she decided to be with me, and the best part is that she told me she feels the same. We're even talking about moving in together, and I'm in a really good place right now. Well, my dad, my stepmom, my stepbrother and his girlfriend and stepsisters were all going to the mall today, and I decided to invite my girlfriend, but she said that she was busy. But you know what? She wasn't actually busy. She wanted to surprise me and coordinated this with my older stepsister. So my stepsister told me to turn around, and I saw her walking over. I ran over, pulled her into a hug, and I kissed her, and I was so happy. It wasn't like I was in a sour mood and moping around all day. I was just happier because my girlfriend was with me. I had my arms around her pretty much the whole time that we were there. Later, in the parking lot, my stepbrother's girlfriend pulled him aside. It seemed like they were arguing, and she ended up walking away afterwards. My stepbrother walked up to me and asked if I was happy. I asked what he meant, and according to him, I made his girlfriend dump him. Apparently, she said that she wanted someone to love her the way I loved my girlfriend, and he was convinced I purposefully acted in such a way so that they would break up right then and there. Everyone else heard what was going on and came over, and my stepbrother explained his side, which was pretty much him just saying that my girlfriend and I made his girlfriend dump him. And before we could defend ourselves, my stepmother started ranting at us. My dad stuck up for us, and pretty soon everyone was arguing. My girlfriend and I left, and then we went back to her place. Well, I just got a long text from my stepmom that's basically just her saying that I should stop acting so obsessed with my girlfriend, and that I was a major jerk for ruining my stepbrother's relationship. Now, I can't speak to how his relationship was before I introduced them to my girlfriend, but all I know is that they've been dating for 4 years, and I haven't really been around them that much. I was only acting how I normally act with my girlfriend because I love her so much, and I think I should be allowed to hug her in public. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You're not the jerk. It sounds like your stepbrother is an awful boyfriend, and it sounds like your stepmom is completely delusional. Like seriously, why would you be the problem in that guy's relationship? You didn't plan them breaking up. This was probably in the works for years in the making. Like, it is literally insane for you to be blamed for that relationship falling apart, because you absolutely had nothing to do with it, and anyone who blames that on you is seriously out of their mind. A group of entitled Karens make my life a living nightmare as they schedule a dinner reservation for their upcoming wedding without servers, dishwashers, and other essential things for an evening dinner, just so they could cut costs and save some money. But as a result, this evening very quickly turned into a nightmare, as this became one of the most hectic jobs I've ever completed in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so today I'm going to tell you the tale of me trying to feed a clan of angry, pushy, unvaccinated Karens. Just last year, we had a client who turned out to be a total Karen. It started out with small tells that we probably should have noticed in retrospect. I mean, there were definitely degrading comments made towards their own daughter during a menu tasting, as well as her being snippy over prices. However, it didn't quite register at the time, and we gave them the benefit of the doubt. They originally decided to do a self-serve buffet and picked out their menu pending their final guest count. We give them a ballpark based on their maximum guest count, and that seems to be that for the time being. Well, months roll by, and they give us their final guest count, while we deliver an estimate based on that. But almost immediately, they get more rude over the price. They also want to change from buffet service to fully plated, and they did this because they feel there's not enough space in the venue for a buffet. So we happily oblige and redo the entire estimate. Now, for any who aren't aware, plated service generally requires far more staff than a buffet. You need plating cooks, cooks and servers, not to mention additional equipment like plate racks. And needless to say, with all of this added together, the Karen is furious and demands that the servers be removed because according to her, the guests can walk up to the kitchen service window and get their own plates. And you know what? That's totally fine. That is doable. But that still is not enough. She starts complaining by saying, "Oh, why is the price so high?" So we then proceed to explain the equipment and the kitchen staff needed, plus having staff on call in case of call-ins and no-shows. Well, this entitled Karen isn't having any of that, resulting in all sorts of cajoling over the price and the unneeded staff. At one point, they even tried to use the native status of some relatives just to get the sales tax removed. And as a side note, it turns out that even just trying to do that is a federal crime where we're at, which had I known at the time, things would have been much different. So to try to accommodate, we trim it down. I've plated for 35 solo with no delay out of the back of a van. I was outpacing what the two servers could take most of the time. 4 staff for 100 people or so shouldn't really be an issue if the tables are set up for 10 people, and especially if they're going to be shuffling up one by one to get their plates. But fast forward to the day of, and trust me, this is definitely not how it ended up playing out. As it turned out, on the day of, the coordinator had no seating plan or plan of who gets what. All we have is the invoice of the total numbers of dishes to be plated up, so no prioritizing can even be done on a table-by-table basis. And this is where we had a feeling it was about to be an awful evening. Literally, right as service starts, and we have about as many plates of salad stacked on the service window as you can possibly fit, the wedding coordinator barges in and tells us that people won't be coming to get their own plates, and then refuses to elaborate further. So things just went from suboptimal to a complete disaster at this point. So what happens instead, you might ask? The wedding coordinator and 2 of their staff are carrying plates one by one to the tables. We literally don't have room to place more plates, so the head chef exits the kitchen and starts taking plates by the armful. And I'm talking all the way from the wrist up to the shoulder, since there are no serving trays in the client's venue, and we didn't pack any unneeded equipment as per the client's request. So you might be asking, what does the chef see when he gets out on the floor? Well, the stupid wedding coordinator packed the tables in so tightly that no one can even get out of their seat. No one can even get between the tables to serve the food, and the guests have to pass the plates down the tables. But it just keeps getting worse. While the chef is out, the coordinator comes in, apparently mad that the plates are not all matching. She's informed the client forewent a rental of dishware to use the ones in the venue. So there literally aren't more than 30 matching plates of any particular size or design in the dish cupboard. So the coordinator starts digging through the clean dishes with her unwashed hands, presumably trying to find more matching plates, and she was doing this all without even covering up her hair. On top of that, she tossed her jacket down onto an open bin full of bread rolls. So now we have to discard those as well. And on top of that too, we have to sanitize all the dishes that she made filthy. The salads were simple, but the entrees have multiple components. The coordinator and her staff start to just take incomplete plates because they don't even know what a full plate should include. When we tell them to stop, the coordinator goes full Karen mode, berating us and saying that people are hungry, while also berating us for sending out incomplete plates. Now, the mother of Bridezilla, the Queen Karen herself, comes up to the plating window and starts screaming at the whole kitchen staff, shouting obscenities, slurs, and other threats. She is literally screaming that some entrees left the kitchen without a dinner roll. When the chef apologizes and tries to calm her down and offers to go hand out the missing rolls, she says, "I'll shove those dinner rolls where the sun doesn't shine." The chef just shrugs her off and once again has to go out of the kitchen to dole out missing items directly to people. As soon as the chef left, the Karen coordinator comes back in and starts completely messing up all the plates again, grinding service to a halt as we desperately try to clean up her health violations. And then the mother of Bridezilla returns just to scream at us some more. The last plates are finally made up, leftovers are packed up where they need to go, and at this point, the chef sends everyone home so they don't have to deal with the Karen's posse anymore. And the Queen Karen told us to get out multiple times anyways. This chef, the brave man that he is, stays behind and helps bust the tables. He scraps the dishware and cleans the kitchen. Now, as a note, no cleaning of dishware was to be included because this entitled Karen didn't want to pay the staff hours to handle it, but the chef stays over and handles it all anyways, because bless him, he wants to make up for the inconvenience of it all. Well, that unfortunately wasn't good enough for Bridezilla, Bridezilla or the mother of Bridezilla herself at all. Almost immediately following the wedding, they started sending angry emails trying to demand huge refunds with the veiled threat of giving us bad reviews. Our office guy by this point has conducted their own investigation since just about every staff member filed a report of harassment from the client and their guests, as well as notation of all the health code violations that the coordinator Karen caused in the kitchen. But what a mistake it was to use facts on a Karen, as they immediately spun around making up all sorts of health violations, downplaying the tirade of verbal harassment, minimizing coordinator Karen's kitchen escapades, as well as their threats to ruin us with bad reviews. Well, rightly so, our office guy shuts them down, offers a partial refund as a professional courtesy, but only on the contingency that they sign a settlement agreement. Now, why would we want them to sign a settlement agreement, you might be asking? Well, it's because they've already threatened to give us bad reviews, as well as take things to court, not to mention their slander, libel, and defamation. And in my honest opinion, the company should have told them to pound sand, and that an apology would have been too good after Queen Karen called the kitchen staff all sorts of names. Well, apparently, signing the agreement just wasn't what the Karen clan wanted, or maybe they wouldn't be satisfied with anything less than a full refund. But eventually, the bad reviews started to come in, not to mention the social media slandering and the general angry Karen stuff. I mean, this was an absolute nightmare. Apparently, some of them even submitted bogus reports to the health inspector, and hilariously enough, none of those even lined up with their previous complaints, such as one for moldy food and the frozen meals that we sell at our storefront. As of initially writing this back in November of last year, Google finally stepped in and blasted their awful reviews into the shadow realm. All they could do was cry about it all over Facebook. Now, to end this story off, as it turned out, during the investigation of the Karen's clan, every single one of them was a bunch of anti-vax COVID deniers. Now, what does this have to do with any of this, you might be wondering? Well, shortly after I made this post, they ended up transmitting COVID to all of the staff that we had present there. And this basically left us shut down for the rest of November, with all of our staff sick, as well as getting their family sick. And this is all because they're too stupid and selfish to get a little shot in the arm. All in all, I think this was the worst group of people I've ever seen in over 2 decades of hospitality. Wow, that is an absolute nightmare. These Karens not only didn't want any servers, but they also didn't want to pay for people to wash the dishes. Like, seriously, are they stupid or something? I mean, not to mention some of the obvious clues that, yeah, they are pretty dumb, but like, seriously, they didn't even want someone washing the dishes? Honestly, with all things considered, I'm so sorry you went through this, but man, I can only imagine having to deal with this, because these Karens sounded absolutely obnoxious, and hopefully nothing like this ever happens to you or your business ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for reminding my parents that my stepsister ruined our family's future? Here's what happened. So I grew up in a big blended family where we all consider ourselves siblings, and I consider my stepmom my mother. Now, all of us kids are close except for one person, who we will call Lena, my stepsister. Lena is not her real name. My parents think it's just because she didn't grow up with the rest of us, but that's not it. And sure, by the time she came to live with us, she was almost 18 years old. But it's not because of that. It's because she cost the rest of us our futures. You see, when she came to live with us, she had been independently homeschooled. She was said to be very smart, but testing revealed that she only had about a 9th grade education, all with no transferable credits. Neither our school or the public school were willing to place her above the 9th grade. Since she was only about a month away from turning 18, this would mean that she would be in high school until her 21st birthday, and would more likely than not have dropped out anyways. The other option was for her to get a GED. Now, they were devastated, especially because she had an offer from family friends to get her into and through college if she did a very specific program that she did have advanced education in. If she didn't graduate that year, they would question how bad it was and likely rescind the offer. The only other option was for her to get a GED, which would force the family friend to take back the offer, even if they still wanted to help her out, because she could never get accepted with a GED. My parents worried over this, until someone they knew who was the admin of another private school offered to help out. They offered to enroll her as a senior, and she could spend the year catching up, and this was provided that they saw it in their hearts to give a donation, of course. Well, after $100,000 later, she graduated
graduated from an accredited high school and moved on to college. My family, by the way, is just normal middle class. So paying that price meant that the rest of us had to take out massive student loans, and my youngest siblings even had to switch to public schooling. My older brother got some help before this, but there wasn't a dime left for the rest of us. My parents justify it by saying they had to do it because it was their job to give all their kids as close to an equal start to their lives as possible, and this was the only option to do that for her. My mom asked why we all have this strained relationship with Lena, and it finally came out that truthfully, we resent her for the huge financial load on us and the rest of the family that she caused. It has been 10 years and she's never even tried to apologize or make amends, and that is honestly grating. But now my father is telling us that my mom has fallen into a depressive episode, all because nobody loves Lena except for her, and that we were not a family despite everything that she's done. Well, in my eyes, we are a family, just not Lena. So am I a jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, so in my opinion, I do think you're kind of being a jerk here. First of all, it's been 10 years. If this happened like last week, I would understand where you're coming from. But seriously, you're acting like she ruined your lives. First of all, this is not Lena's fault. And if anything, this falls on your parents for not maintaining her homeschooling. And sure, it was self-directed or whatever you want to call it, but seriously, that is not easy to do on your own. So it kind of makes sense that your stepsister would be behind just a little bit. Kids don't choose to homeschool themselves. I mean, your parents had to step in and make that decision at some point. And so now, because your parents dropped the ball, Lena was stuck in an awful situation. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. Sure, her parents spent a lot of money to get her education, but that is literally them trying to fix a situation that they caused. So honestly, in my opinion, if after 10 years you're still trying to hold this over Lena's head, then I really think you are the jerk in this situation, and you really need to understand exactly where this problem really started. Am I the jerk for refusing to leave my son's wedding simply because my daughter was having really bad social anxiety? Because at this point, my daughter is acting incredibly immature, and right now I am unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I first want to say that this has been a built-up issue, as my son got married this weekend, and this issue isn't dying, so I'm gonna go here to figure it out. My daughter has very bad anxiety. She is 19 years old, and I'm gonna call her Shelly for the sake of the story. Shelly is not her real name. Now, she used to go to therapy when she was a minor, but she stopped as soon as she turned 18 years old. And ever since then, her anxiety has been out of control. And due to this, she won't drive anymore. Now, she has a license, but she refuses to drive. We live in the United States, and driving is basically needed, or it's a big inconvenience for the people around her. Also, she is an adult, so it's not like we can force her to drive. Now, this is where the issue comes into play. My son was getting married, and she was uncomfortable with so many people around her at this wedding. So she asked me to take her home. I told her no, and that if she's having difficulties, she can wait in the car. But she told me that it's freezing outside and that she just needs to leave. So I told her no again, and I told her to turn on the heat in the car, and that she can wait there if she really needs to be away from people. Well, she didn't like this answer, and told me that she will have a panic attack if she stays, and that she needs to go home. Well, I told her that she needs to take an Uber then, because I am not leaving. And when I said this, she simply didn't like that, turning this into a full argument. And when Shelly told me that I need to take her home again, I had simply had enough. I told Shelly she was being selfish, and that despite her many opinions, I will not deprive her brother of having his parents being at his wedding. I said that if I took her home, I would miss his wedding since it was an hour drive from here. Well, Shelly called me a jerk and left to go stay in the car for a little bit. She was back about an hour later for the rest of the wedding, and she has been angry with me ever since, with her younger brother copying her attitude. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I seriously can't believe that your daughter's acting like that, and that she would seriously want to pull you away from this wedding just so she can go all the way home an hour away. Like, does she not care about the fact that her brother's getting married? Like, seriously, that's so selfish, it's not even funny. And here's the thing, if she knows she has panic issues and she has a lot of like social anxiety or something like that, then it is her responsibility to manage those symptoms and make sure she's in a good place, because it is absolutely unreasonable for everyone else around her to literally have to change everything about their life just to accommodate her. And I'm not saying that in a general sense. If there are minor things that a loved one or a sibling really would need to better accommodate their living situation or whatever might be going on,
person, then I am more than willing to step up and make those changes. But for her to seriously look at you and be like, no, I want to leave the wedding right now, and you need to drive me home right away. That is completely unacceptable and unreasonable given the circumstances. And so you telling her to get an Uber or to sit in the car, honestly, is exactly what I would have done. Because if you walked out on that day when your son was about to get married, that honestly would have been completely tragic. And it all would have been Shelly's fault because she has not done anything to manage her anxiety symptoms. So no, you are not the jerk. Her anxiety is for her to deal with. And if she cannot understand that simple fact, then that is something that she is just gonna have to live with. Am I the jerk for refusing to name my daughter after my bully from high school? Because right now, my husband is not listening to any of my concerns. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was in high school, I was constantly being bullied by Sophia. She made fun of my appearance, my personality, my hobbies, and my grades. She also spread rumors about me and often told me that she wished I wasn't alive. And she was pretty specific about saying that to me. And even in elementary school, she was just this stuck-up brat who just endlessly spoke about how rich she was. So, in general, I do not have a positive connotation for the name Sophia, but wouldn't just dislike someone because they share the name. Well, my husband and I were discussing names for our child, and we don't know if it's going to be a male or a female, but we started making a list of 10 male and 10 female names that we would consider. And one of the names that my husband was very insistent on was Sophia. And this is the name of his dead grandmother who basically raised him since his parents were always busy with work. Now, all at once, I told him that I would not even consider it because of the bully who tormented me who was also named Sophia. Well, he got angry since he really wanted to use the name of the person who meant so much to him. But I held my ground and I simply refused. He told me that we should at least put it in the possible names category, but I said absolutely not since I did not even want to consider it. Well, he got really angry that I wasn't trying to take his opinion into account. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this is really funny to me because how can your husband not see that this is a problem? For starters, no, of course you're not the jerk. This is insane that your husband can't see where you're coming from. So obviously, this brings up a lot of bad memories about a school bully who made your life a living nightmare. And obviously, that can affect someone well into adulthood. And you know what? I know exactly where you're coming from as well. The name of my bully when I was in school is a name I don't like at all. It has a horrible negative connotation and it really does bring up bad memories. So the last thing I would ever want to do is name my future child by that bully's name. That's just a recipe for disaster, and that literally will just make me resent that child for the rest of their life. And if someone really wants to think oh yeah, you just gotta get over it, then that person is being completely unreasonable and clearly they didn't have any kind of struggles as a kid. Because in the case of the original poster, this bully literally said to the original poster that they wish they were no longer alive. I don't know about you, but that really sounds like an awful person, and from the sounds of it, they made their entire high school career an absolute nightmare. So the fact that your husband is trying to push this name on you is evidence right there that he's not even thinking about your experience, and he honestly is being very short-sighted. Also, why on earth would he still want to pursue a name that the both of you don't agree on? That seems incredibly counterintuitive, and it honestly just doesn't make sense why he would want to put it on the list. If either one of you said no to a name for your future child, then that, in my opinion, should be the end of the conversation. That should be the last thing you ever say about it, and you just say, okay, that name's not gonna work. And then you move on to other names that do work. How is this hard for your husband to understand? So overall, no, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your husband is being unreasonable, and the fact that he would get upset over this honestly is insane to me, because that name has a lot of weight to it. And I seriously think that if you named your future child by that name, then that would seriously be a disaster waiting to happen. My parents hired a private detective just so they could follow my every move and make sure that I'm still following their house rules, despite the fact that I'm 25 years old. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so to start things out, I'm in my late 20s and I live on my own and have my own car. My parents are super strict and made me miss out on the college experience, which I am still bitter about. I come from a family of extroverted people, such as my cousin who is also accomplished career-wise, but still throws parties with around 70 people. She got to have the whole exciting college experience involving large social events and pursuit of creative passions, and now she has fun alongside her career. She also road and starred in her own musicals, and I have a similar passion for acting that I've never even gotten to pursue. I got the similar genes of being fun-loving, creatively passionate, and wanting to enjoy my life. Well, I moved out at 25 to make up for what I've missed out on and to at least try and enjoy my current freedom. The years after moving out have been the best years of my life. However, my parents still make me feel restricted. They literally hired detectives to remotely tap into my phone as well as read my text messages. They found out I was staying over at a friend's house and they got so mad that they threatened to show up to the friend's house just to tell her to leave me alone. They're also tracking my car because they know when I'm out late and then they scold me for it. I can probably find the tracker and remove it, but the detectives part worries me since they're able to do this without a tracker. So how should I even begin to stop this? Should I say I'm gonna reduce in-person time with them from once a week to once every 2 weeks? I mean, they got really mad when I suggested that before because even with weekly visits, they miss me too much. I feel sad because I'm missing out socially and romantically as they still manage to enforce their rules of don't go out after sunset, as well as don't have sleepovers and don't go out on the weekends. Instead, they want me in at 5:30 and they want me to focus on my work. I would love to meet and organically form a romantic connection with somebody, but my opportunity to meet new people is restricted since after work, weekend times after dark, and the once a week day that they see me are all off limits for socializing. So honestly, I'm at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is literally an insane story because your family is stalking you. They are hiring private investigators to stalk and follow your every move, as well as tap into your phone calls and text messages. Like seriously, my guy, this is not okay. They are literally trying to control your life even though you moved out. So if I was in your shoes, I would be going to the police. This is not normal behavior. Like I would understand if a parent was concerned about their kid moving out or something like that, but this is insane behavior. This is not okay. This is not them worrying about you and what you're doing. This is them literally trying to control every aspect of your life. And that is incredibly creepy. There is no good excuse for this. So yeah, I would call the police and get them involved. And I would also go to some like auto shop of some kind and explain to them exactly what's going on and maybe pay to see if they can find any kind of tracker on your car. Because what you're describing right now is insanely scary and this is not normal behavior. Like they're even going as far as like tracking who you're talking to and how late you're staying out. Like I'm kind of surprised you haven't blocked these people at this point and told them to get lost and pound some sand. Like you're 25 years old. You don't have to explain anything to these people. So honestly, with all things considered, I really hope you're able to get away from your parents and you're able to get to the bottom of all this craziness because this behavior is not normal in the slightest. And I just think it would be a mistake to let this slide and do nothing about it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My wife has an annual trip every single year that she goes on by herself. And after seeing this happen for so many years, I'm starting to question why she's going on this trip in the first place without also inviting her husband. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife loves to travel, but I do not. I don't hate it, but I find it stressful and flying makes me incredibly anxious. My wife, on the other hand, has traveled all over the place, lived in multiple countries, and is always planning the next big adventure. This really hasn't been an issue for us. I do travel with my wife probably once or twice a year, usually staying a little bit closer to home. Otherwise, she travels with her friends and family. She always invites me on these trips, but I rarely go. And while I miss having her around, it is a good arrangement. She gets to do something that she loves, and I get some alone time to unwind at home. She'll send pictures and we'll FaceTime, and she usually brings me back some cool souvenirs. Now, all of this is to say there's one trip she makes every single year that I'm starting to get really uncomfortable with. She goes by herself to the same place every year, and it is non-negotiable. When she's there, I hear from her way less than any other trip. She'll send pictures and we do FaceTime, but it is a lot less often. When she gets back, she'll give me snippets of information, but I don't get a full day-by-day rundown. Now, this trip predates me. She first went to this place in college and has been back basically every year since. She's told me several times how much this place means to her, but I personally have a lot of problems with this. For starters, the trip is non-negotiable. She's had lots of trips change or get canceled or not materialize, but this one never does that. It is always going to happen. I'm also not invited and it feels very secretive, like she doesn't want to share it with me. And this place isn't exactly a tourist hotspot. It's not what you would think as a vacation destination, and there aren't a lot of sights to see even according to my wife. So why does she feel the need to go back 10 years in a row if there's not that much to do? I've brought it up to my wife, but she can't see where I'm coming from. The issue being that we have the money and that we have time off of work, and we still have a great relationship outside of all of this. I even asked if I could come along sometime, but she accused me of only wanting to go so that I could keep tabs on her, because I, under any other circumstance, would have no interest in going to this place. So, according to her, it's either my insecurity or my ego that's trying to keep her from her passion. Now, I get where she's coming from, but it also seems crazy to me to be deliberately unwilling to include your spouse in something like this. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't necessarily think you're the jerk in this situation, but I do think it's probably safe to mind your own business. Like, this trip is something that has been going on well before your wife met you, and it's something that she enjoys to do every single year. Like, there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion. It doesn't sound like there's any kind of like nefarious things going on, and I'm willing to assume that there's no hints of her like cheating on you or anything like that. So personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with her going on a solo trip every single year. Also, the way she spoke to you really makes me believe that maybe you do keep tabs on her way too much. Like, I know if I was in your shoes and my significant other said something like that, where they thought I was monitoring them way too much or something like that, I would do some serious self-reflection and be like, wait, am I actually doing that? Because maybe this is a situation where you might be a little too obsessed in what she is and isn't doing. And maybe this is a wake-up call to like take a step back and not be so overly involved and like overbearing. And maybe that's not what's going on here. This is just an honest observation. So hopefully you can figure this out, because honestly, I don't see this as nearly as big of a deal as you're making it. And if your wife seriously wants to go on a private trip every single year, then I think it's completely reasonable to just let her do it. Today, I messed up by almost losing my job and my mentorship over a silly joke. Here's what happened. So this story happened back in 2002. For a small backstory, being physically disabled, I've beat the odds many times in my life. I also grew up in an extremely hostile family and was told that I would never amount to much of anything. And this will be important to know going into the story, because it contributed to how big of a mess up I potentially made. I am blessed to have had two grandparents who believed in me even when they didn't have a reason to, and that's why I ended up with this opportunity. When I graduated high school, my parents made it clear that they did not think I would live long enough to make use of a college education due to my various health-related challenges, and thus I was on my own to figure out what to do for a career. Growing up with a disability, I always had a fascination with motivation and psychology, and growing up in a hostile environment, abnormal psychology was definitely a particular interest. My grandfather, who to be fair is one of the smartest and most positive men I've ever known, would regularly peruse the local newspaper and found that there was a local job in health-related research that was run by the head of the psychology department at a local university. My grandfather encouraged me to apply because the advertisement said that there were multiple jobs available. It also said that a mentorship was available in certain situations, which my father said would be an awesome opportunity. I got the job a few weeks later and apparently had impressed the person who was doing the interviewing, because on my second day at the job, I met the director of the entire project, who also happened to be a research-based psychologist who had received international recognition. Apparently, I conducted myself well, and he took an interest in me because we had about a 2-hour conversation upon our first meeting. The job itself was conducting research surveys on a variety of topics via the phone, so it's basically a government-funded telemarketing thing. I was originally brought in for one project, but within a matter of months, I was transferred under the director of the facility to work on a senior citizen project. Completion of an individual survey in the senior citizen project usually took about somewhere between 10 to 25 minutes. I've always had the gift of speaking well, and there were only about 10 to 12 of the staff of 80 working on this particular project. When I was selected for the project, this led to me working at least a few days a week directly with the professor, which led to him offering the mentorship over multiple years, which means I got to learn more about the science of behavioral change from somebody who was nationally recognized. But unfortunately, this is where my mess up begins. Now, normally we were on 4-hour shifts for this particular project because dealing with people who had a good bit of hearing loss and other misunderstandings sometimes would be draining, so we would switch working different projects. I had been asked to cover someone's shift later in the day, which means that I was going to put in what amounted to a 10-hour day on the phone, with at least 6 of those hours being senior citizen related project work. work. There was a policy that if a person responding to the survey was difficult, we could flag a supervisor and have them give us permission to terminate the phone call or continue on another day. And this will be important later on. I was going through the day and had 7 surveys completed and was starting to get a little tired. Well, this girl I was crushing on, who happened to be my coworker, invited me to hang out after work. So needless to say, I was exceedingly excited about the prospects that waited my young 20-something-year-old self at the end of my shift. Well, that is until everything started going downhill. I was put on the phone with a respondent who was in her 90s at approximately 30 minutes before the shift was to end. The first thing that she says to me is that she had broken her hearing aids earlier in the day and that they were not charging correctly, but I confidently let her know that I could be patient and repeat everything that she needed repeated. And well, when I said that, this was honestly the beginning of my doom. It was clear to me within the first 10 minutes of our phone call that I was going to need to repeat about every sentence that I needed to say to this woman. This led to me maybe coming off as exceedingly frustrated as I looked at the clock and realized I was going to have to put in overtime, and it was also very clear that she did not want to continue the call on another day when her hearing aids were going to be more functional. Now keep in mind, I was 9 hours into a shift when this began, and I was really ready to go home. I dutifully handed my crush a note to go flag down a supervisor, and I thought I would be given permission to reschedule the phone call. But the trouble is that it was the supervisor's decision on whether we would be allowed to terminate for another day or not. And unfortunately, the supervisor making that decision on this day was somebody who did not like me, all because I got the final mentorship spot with the professor, and her daughter had applied for the same position, so she had a bit of a grudge against me to say the very least. Well, the shifts had ended, and I was still plugging away, at which point the girl I was supposed to go to dinner with wrote me a note and asked me how much longer I was going to be. I quickly scribbled something that no one could read, and I went about my business. Back on the line, this older lady had proceeded to begin washing her dishes, making it even more difficult to hear, but there was no relief coming from my supervisor. Now, the mess up had finally arrived, and my colleague said that she didn't understand what I had written. I then quickly hit what I thought was the mute button, but instead it was the call merge button, as they were right next to each other, and I then turned to my crush, and I jokingly said that I wasn't sure who was going to pass away first, this woman's hearing aid or the woman herself. Now, knowing that whatever higher power you may believe in has a sense of humor, I'm sure you can guess what happened next. This older woman suddenly got the hearing of an owl and heard my ill-timed joke that I said to my friend. She then proceeded to start yelling at me for having the manners of a heathen and the training of a hillbilly to wish that she would pass away. Now, no matter how hard I tried to explain, she now could suddenly hear everything, but still simply did not want to use her ears, and instead she proceeded to ask for the name of my direct supervisor, as well as the person running the project, and that she was going to call and complain about me the next day. She then slammed the phone in my ear, and I received a lecture from the supervisor who did not let me end the call. Now, as you can imagine, dinner was ruined, and we did not go out and have a good time like I had planned, but instead I spent the next 24 hours or so concerned that I was about to lose my mentorship and my job. 2 days later, the director of the project and the professor who was mentoring me called me into his office. He then proceeded to play back about 10 minutes of the phone call before letting me say anything to defend myself. He then asked me to answer one question for him. He asked me how I lasted that long and why I had not alerted my supervisor to this problem, because he had spent about 90 minutes earlier in the day talking with this woman about my poor conduct. Now, I was sure I was about to get fired, but instead he said that I don't get paid enough for this stuff and that I handled that like someone with professional training. He did admonish me to make sure I hit the mute button instead of the merge button next time, and that I might want to consider taking shorter shifts on days that I had to work the senior project. Well, it turns out that I didn't know that this entire call had been recorded as part of our quality control, and he was able to legitimize that I hadn't done anything wrong. And from then on, I was no longer able to be on the same shift with a supervisor who refused to end that call. Needless to say, I never expected that a 15-second joke could have cost me one of the most important professional relationships of my life. Yeah, I'm sure that was like super stressful on the day of, because you were convinced, yeah, I'm about to lose my job, and all over a stupid joke. Like seriously, that supervisor really should have stepped in. So good for you for keeping your job and at least having a manager who has some brains inside of their body, because if you got fired for that, that honestly would have been absolutely awful. An entitled Karen makes my job a living nightmare as she picks up her to-go order right when our kitchen was about to close, and I've honestly never been more annoyed by somebody in my life. Here's what happened. 2 nights ago, a customer calls for a to-go order. My boss, manager, and owner answers the phone, and the customer asks for a very specific taco that isn't on our menu. But my boss, knowing how to make them, he decided to go out of their way to make them for the customer. The boss explains the ticket to me because I've never heard of that kind of taco before, and told me that he decided to start introducing new items on the menu just to try and stay in the game. So he clearly wanted to keep up with the 2 other Mexican restaurants in the area that I work in. So the order is ready, and the boss told the customer that the order would be ready within 10 to 15 minutes. And so we start to wait. After 20 minutes, the customer doesn't show up. Then 40 minutes pass and the customer is still nowhere to be found. Then 1 hour passes and then 2 hours. And of course, my boss isn't pleased with the customer because they put in all that extra time and effort for those tacos all for nothing. 1 minute before closing, the customer calls in and she wants her order. So I explained that her order had been sitting there for hours and that the kitchen is already closed and that we couldn't get her new tacos. She says it's okay and she wants them, and then she pulls in. To make sure I'm not making a mistake by selling those tacos, I asked my boss and he told me that it was okay. Now keep in mind, I'm in Missouri and it was freezing cold outside. Since we offer curbside pickup, we have to take the food outside to the parking lot. Now tell me why this idiot takes her time on her phone, texting and making numbers on the calculator, and then back to texting someone instead of getting the stupid card so that she could pay. I mean, I thought my thoughts were gonna freeze over before she even pays for her food. I see her acting kinda sketchy because she would be on her phone and then reach for her purse, and then she would reach for the steering wheel and then back to her phone. She grabbed something that looked like a card and extended her hand to give it to me in exchange for her food. But instead, she grabs the bag and starts opening the food without giving me the card. In my head, I was thinking, this idiot is gonna act like something's wrong with her food after she took so long to pick it up? Like, are you kidding me right now? She then dismisses the bag, looks at her phone, and again kind of reaches for the steering wheel and backs out. Then she asked me for a side of guacamole and sour cream. Now at this point, the kitchen had been dismantled about 40 minutes ago for the weekly deep cleaning, and I had already told her over the phone that the restaurant was closed. So no, you can't get that. The kitchen is no longer in service for a while now. She then let out a deep breath and resigned, giving me her card. I go and cash her out, and when I'm back, she had her food spread all over the open passenger seat. I gave the card to her, and she did not even tip me as she went along her merry way. Now, it wasn't until after I was telling this story to my sister when I got home that I realized she probably was trying to run away without paying, and asking me for the side orders was her way of achieving that. But little does she know that if I could have gotten the side orders, I would have taken the bag with her food with me with the excuse of putting the sides in her bag, just so I don't give her more bags to carry, thus making things supposedly easier for her. But in reality, she was probably trying to pull some weird scam on me to try and steal the food when I went into the restaurant. Yeah, that's honestly super annoying across the board. Not only was this lady asking for items on the menu that didn't exist, but your boss, instead of telling her to take a hike and be like, no, we don't have that, what are you talking about? He decides that no, we're gonna go above and beyond and we're gonna make those tacos, even though they're literally not on the menu. Like seriously, that is just annoying for everybody involved. Because in my opinion, if you do it for one customer, trust me, it's gonna happen for others. And that's a really weird precedent to set for your employees to have to deal with. Like customer service is already like a coin flip as it is. You either have good people that come in and they treat you with respect, or they're just neutral, or you have people who are completely belligerent, or they're rude, or they're trying to steal from you like the lady from this story, which by the way, that's exactly what she was trying to do. You cannot convince me otherwise that she wasn't trying to scam you out of that food. And I'm also kind of convinced that she was stalling just to try and freeze you out. Like you pretty much picked up on this right away because she was clearly trying to like take her time and really make you miserable as she was supposedly looking through her phone and trying to get her card together. And that is honestly so rude and disturbing to do to somebody. Like there's no good reason for that. And she also waited for her food for like well over 2 hours. Like who in their right mind would want those tacos after that? It's probably going to be like this weird soggy mess, and it's not going to be good at all. Like that really does sound disgusting. So across the board, this really sounds like a miserable thing to deal with, and I seriously hope you never have to put up with that ever again. Whether that's your boss putting new items on the menu all of a sudden, or even this weird Karen trying to steal this food from you in the middle of a snowstorm. My entitled, jealous cousin tries to sleep with my husband when I'm not around, just to satisfy her weird jealousy that she has towards me and my life. And I'm honestly so blown away by her actions, I simply couldn't believe what what she did. Here's what happened. So my cousin, who we will call Mary, that's not her real name, grew up to be an extremely jealous person in her teens. We've all hoped she would grow out of it, but she has not. She refuses to even address it. When I proposed to my husband, who we will call Sean, a couple of years ago, Mary threw a fit. She wanted to be the first to get married between the two of us. She said that she deserved it, even though she didn't even have a boyfriend. Because Sean and I chose to have a small personal wedding, we were able to use money set aside for us to buy a home and to pay off half of the mortgage. And this resulted in another tantrum from Mary, despite the fact that there is money set aside for her too, including from our grandparents and Aunt Miranda, who chose not to have children. So I think you kind of get the picture here. If I have something that Mary doesn't, she wants it. If I accomplish something before her, she screams that it's not fair. It doesn't matter if she's younger than me by 6 years, and I would naturally reach some goals before her. There's just no logic in her tantrums. This then brings us to Miranda's annual New Year's party. There's always food, drinks, and games. It's a fun night where we can get wasted safely with family and friends if we want to, especially since there are no kids in the family at the moment. When I was returning from the bathroom, I saw Sean looking extremely uncomfortable and trying to fend off Mary, who was sitting much too close to him on the couch. I managed to overhear her telling him that women are much better than men and insisting that he try with her because he didn't know what he was missing, if you know what I mean. Also, for reference, I'm a 28-year-old male and Sean is my husband. Now, Sean is 100% gay, so this was just pathetic for her, but I was seeing red over the fact that she was attempting to ruin our marriage to satisfy her jealousy. I said to her, if women are so great, then date a woman instead of trying to get my husband to sleep with you. Now, the entire room heard this and I definitely did not control my volume, so right then and there, the party was essentially ruined. The family has spared us from most of the chaos that followed, but today we found out that the money that was set aside for her is no longer for her. The tuition to pay for the remaining classes for her bachelor's degree has been refunded to our grandparents since spring classes haven't started yet. All the money from her parents is going to her younger brother, and all the money from our grandparents and Miranda is going to be distributed between him and myself. She's getting nothing. She's also been given 3 months to find a new place to live because her parents don't want her living under their roof. She was given a massive leg up just like I was, and she completely ruined it all for herself. Now, I do almost feel sorry for her, but considering all the things that she has done, I still don't feel that bad. Wow, your cousin is super toxic. Like, there's no other way around this. Like, for starters, her temper tantrums are completely uncalled for. Like, she's getting upset over you, like, hitting milestones in your life, and that's, like, really weird in my opinion. Like, why is she so jealous of you? Like, it really seems like she's obsessed with everything that you're doing pretty much all the time, while completely ignoring her own life and her own things that she has going on. So it really makes me scratch my head as to why she's upset that you're getting married and that you're also getting a house and you're paying off half the mortgage. Like, why would that affect her so much that she would be like, wow, you don't deserve it, this isn't fair? Also, for reference, Mary in this story is 22 years old. You would think that somebody at that age would have it more together, even just in a small way. So for her to act like this, even in her 20s, is really disappointing and really cringy. But in my opinion, what she did at the party was so inappropriate. It is really disgusting that she tried to do that to your husband, and that she basically tried to sleep with someone who is practically family at this point. Like, that's really weird, and it's so highly inappropriate. Because just imagine if the roles were reversed in some kind of way, and you decided to hit on their spouse or their, like, significant other as some kind of way to, like, satisfy your jealousy for her. Like, that would be an immediate red flag, and that would be so bad. But you know what? Based on the reaction from the family, it seems like everybody is, like, on board, and they're like, yeah, this is not okay. And sure, it does suck that she lost all that money, but I am really willing to bet that this is not the first time she's done something, like, super weird. This is most likely, like, the last straw that definitely broke the camel's back, and now the family's like, okay, we're cutting her off from everything. This is just not worth it anymore. So seriously, good for you for standing up for yourself, because your cousin is being incredibly creepy and very weird. And honestly, the blowback she's receiving is kind of deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister is constantly walking over our parents, using them for just about everything, while also overstepping boundaries and treating everybody like garbage. And after witnessing this on the sideline for such a long time, I feel helpless to do anything about this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I want to start off by saying that this story has no good guy. Actually, this story isn't really black and white either. However, one person in this story is arguably worse than the rest of us. I'm a 26-year-old female and I have two sisters who are 25 and 24. The youngest one, let's call her Jane, has always been the most spoiled between the three of us. At the age of 21, I moved out of my parents' house to join the military, and my other sister, let's call her Claire, moved out at 23 when she was about a year into her nursing career. Despite having a college degree in business administration, Jane still refuses to get a full-time job or even have any responsibility. Her life revolves around clubbing, partying, and going to the gym. To her credit, she did have a part-time job at our local coffee shop as a barista, and this job was her way of funding her lifestyle. But other than that, she doesn't pay bills. My parents pay for everything, from her car to her cell phone bill, and even her tollway when she drives around. Basically, everything a normal, functioning adult would pay for themselves is footed by my parents because she doesn't even have a career yet. And look, I get it. I have a daughter myself, and I would do anything to make sure that she's taken care of, even as an adult. But there is the difference between financial support and straight up coddling. I've brought it up to my parents, specifically my mom, multiple times as to why she doesn't pay for her car, or at least her insurance, but she basically told me that she shouldn't suffer because of what our dad did. Now, for some backstory, my sister was driving a used Honda around 2017 to 2019. The car itself was fairly new when they bought it, so my parents had it financed, and they gave it to my sister so she can get herself to school. Well, suddenly and without warning, my dad took my sister's car, traded it for a brand new 2020 Honda, even though it wasn't paid off. Now, my parents, specifically my mom, as she is the breadwinner, is stuck paying for a brand new car and a car that she no longer owns. Because of my dad's utter stupidity, my mom tried to make it up to Jane by buying her a new car of the same year as her Honda. So not only was my mom paying for my dad's new Honda and my sister's old Honda, to which the balance was put on top of the new Honda, but now she's got this new car as well. But with all that being said, my mom still feels that she shouldn't make Jane pay for the car because of my dad. Because everything was literally handed to Jane on a silver platter, this has made her extremely entitled. And this is to the point where even my parents are scared of her. For example, one time Jane bought Cane's chicken the night before and left her leftovers on the table. Well, my mom saw it and she ate it. And I had just gotten discharged from the military, so I was staying at my parents' house for a while until I saved up enough money to move out. So I saw my sister's reaction to my mom eating her leftovers. I had just gotten home from the store with my husband and my daughter, and as soon as we got home, Jane angrily asked me if I had eaten her leftovers. I told her I was just out with my family and we got lunch on the way back, so I could not have eaten it. Then she called both my parents who were at church, and she then found out that my mom had eaten her leftovers. After that revelation, she started to yell and swear at them over the phone. Even after she hung up the phone, she kept swearing and yelling and slammed doors and cabinets. I mean, my poor daughter saw all of this and was frankly quite scared of her auntie at that moment. The following week, I was at work when I got an angry phone call from Jane asking if I had been in her bedroom. I told her no because I was rushing to work. She then hung up and I thought that was the end of it. But after I got off work, my sister Claire called me and told me what happened. Jane called Claire complaining about how someone left her room open and one of the dogs had pooped in her room. This incident infuriated Jane to the extent that she stormed into her mom's room where our mom was working from home and engaged in a professional phone call with a client. Jane's intrusion disrupted the professional setting as she loudly berated our mom without any consideration for the ongoing business call. My dad apparently came into the room hearing all the yelling, and fed up with my sister's attitude, he angrily tells my sister that if she doesn't like it here, then she can move out of here, which really upset Jane because she then left the house. When I got home that night, I asked my mom why she continues to let Jane step all over her, even going as far as disrespecting her in her place of work. She says that she is her mother and she is supposed to help her children the best that she can. But I keep telling her that Jane needs adult responsibilities, otherwise she won't appreciate the things that she has. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, Jane sounds like a spoiled brat. There really is no other way around this. Like, she clearly is being enabled to act like this, and it really seems like no one's willing to take a stand except for you. And that's so annoying because there's not much you can do in this scenario. Like, it really does fall on your mom and dad to take a stand and say, okay, you've got to move out by the end of the month, or something like that, just to get the message across. Because right now, it's pretty obvious that that Jane is taking advantage of your parents. And I think you're 100% right, because I also agree with you that it's time for her to step up and start paying her way as an adult. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law to stop being bitter about my wife's successful pregnancy after my sister-in-law had already had multiple miscarriages? Because right now I'm kind of at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 26-year-old male and I'm married to my wife who's 24, and my older brother who's 30 years old is married to his wife who's about 28 years old. My brother has been married for longer than my wife and I, and him and my sister-in-law got pregnant quite a few times, but she lost her pregnancy every single time. They keep trying, but either in the first or second trimester, she miscarries. My wife and I got married last year, and she got pregnant a few months after the wedding, and we welcomed our baby a little over a month ago. We celebrated Christmas with her family and New Year's Eve with mine. We had Christmas dinner with a lot of extended family who had not met the baby yet, so they were all quite excited for it. My aunts and cousins and grandmothers were all over my wife and our baby, asking how she was, how the delivery has been, how she was managing the baby's feeding, and all kinds of stuff, which I think is all normal, right? Well, the problem is that my sister-in-law was very noticeably bitter, and my brother was too. I mean, it's not the first time they act like this ever since my wife and I found out about her pregnancy. At some point, my sister-in-law said that she was sick of all the baby talk, which really rubbed me the wrong way. I told her that she could go home and have chicken nuggets all by herself if she didn't like being surrounded by other happy people. Well, she and my brother said that it was kind of insensitive to be talking about that when everyone knows about their issues to have a child. But I told them that it's not my wife's fault that she was able to have a successful pregnancy and to stop being bitter about it. And when I said that, that started a big argument. It's been a couple of weeks now, and I'm still receiving some text messages from my family who are all deeply worried about my sister-in-law and brother after how I treated them badly. Now, I don't think I treated them badly. It's not my wife's fault that she can successfully carry a baby to term. It's not anyone's fault that a new baby in the family is something to talk about. And now, some people are starting to say that I was insensitive. Now, for a bit of extra context, this is not the first time my sister-in-law says stuff like this. She has done similar stuff in my wife's baby shower, as well as the gender reveal party, even her birthday and other family gatherings. She has made unnecessary comments and telling my wife to tone it down, all while opening up gifts for the baby at the baby shower. I mean, my wife was obviously excited, and my sister-in-law thought that she was overly excited. And we had to end the gender reveal party early because she just won't stop crying. We suggested my brother and her leave and that we wouldn't be upset over it, and I even suggested to drive them myself if they wanted to, but they still didn't want to do it. She just wanted to stay and cry in front of everybody else. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, it seems like this is like a repeated scenario with the sister-in-law, and I know if that was me, I would be really annoyed with the way she's behaving. Like, if this baby and the fact that your wife can have a baby is bothering her that much, then in my opinion, she needs to be the one to remove herself from the situation. Because I think to an extent, you are right. Instead of being happy that a baby is brought into the family, she's using this as a license to try and stomp out your wife's enthusiasm, as well as trying to stifle and calm down anybody else who's excited about the baby. And sure, I'm not ignorant to the fact that they've had miscarriages. That is an awful thing, and seriously, I feel very badly for them. But for her to turn around and use that against everybody over any small thing involving this new baby, that in my opinion is incredibly toxic. Like, if that bothers her that much, and if it really does trigger her and upset her in some kind of way, then I really think she needs to figure that out on her end instead of punishing everybody else around her. Now, when it comes to the comments you made at the party, I think you could have been a lot nicer, to be completely honest. And I think in that regard, yeah, you really should not have done that, because obviously this is a very sore subject for her. But I really think it's counterintuitive for everybody else to be forced to walk on eggshells, all because the rest of the family is excited about your baby. But honestly, that's just my opinion. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Do you think the original poster was in the right, or do you think that he crossed a line? Let us know down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. My obnoxiously needy friend is trying to invite herself on my holiday with me and my boyfriend, and I honestly do not want her to come along with me because I know for a fact she is going to ruin my vacation, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. So I was having lunch with two of my friends when Ash, who's 25 years old, asked me what my travel plans were for 2024. I told her I was really excited about planning my first overseas trip with my boyfriend, and as soon as As I said that, my friend Allie perked up and said, "Oh, let me know when you're going so I can come too." Now, we were both taken aback by the abruptness of her statement, so I gently tried to tell her, "Oh yeah, that'd be nice. However, we would maybe like to do couple things," which she replied by saying, "Oh yuck, but that's fine. I just want to go shopping and get some sun." And right now, I'm trying to figure out how to gently tell her that I do not want her coming on this trip. Here are just a few things that I have issues with. Now, Allie is my friend, but she can be a lot. For starters, she has called me needing help with basic household chores before, making me reschedule my own plans because she, for example, cut her finger to the bone. And for the record, she did not cut her finger to the bone. I live 30 minutes away, and I had to cancel plans only for her to manage to get herself together about 20 minutes into my drive. She's also given herself food poisoning at least 5 times last year. She sprained her wrist, and I had to drop her off at the emergency room at the hospital. She also sprained her ankle as soon as she touched the ocean, so I couldn't go swimming because she'd get lonely on the land. And this particular trip, she was also not initially invited to. Also, on multiple occasions, she's inserted herself into conversations that I am in that literally does not involve her, nor do the other people know who she is. And the worst part about it is that she won't leave. I usually end up excusing myself because I can see the person I'm talking to is getting uncomfortable. She assumes everyone that knows me knows her, and she will even later tell me that she tried to say hi to some people that I knew, but they would just look at her as if they'd never even seen her before, and I just have to keep reminding her that they don't know her. But she insists that she has spoken to them many times, and this honestly gets really exhausting. She invited herself to a birthday party as my +1, and this is when she didn't even know the birthday girl, but claimed that she did. She made my boyfriend and I spend our first Christmas together at her house, all so she wouldn't feel lonely. And she also invited herself to our family's Christmas, where she literally only knew me, so I was left to entertain her to the point that I couldn't enjoy myself. Now, here's the thing. Traveling is expensive. I want to be selfish when I travel, and the last time I traveled with someone who's not my childhood best friend was literally almost a decade ago, and I will honestly have a hard time compromising. This is also going to be my first trip together with my boyfriend. This is my forever partner, so I would like this to be a memorable trip where we each have each other's 100% focus. On top of that, I'm an introvert, and my social batteries are as bad as an iPhone 7. And then, as a result, I'll get cranky, and I don't want to subject my boyfriend to that. My boyfriend has never left the country before, so this is really exciting, but I am also 100% preparing to take on all the mental load while we're traveling. Now, in my awful, blunt brain, I just want to tell her something very straight up. I want to say something like, "Hey, I don't want you there because you're going to ruin the trip. I don't want to eat a romantic dinner for 3 or do a scooter ride for 3 people. You're way too accident prone for me to relax when you're there. Even if you were on the other side of the island, I do not want to get a call from a random hospital saying that you've done all sorts of things to yourself. If you want to go and we happen to be in the same area, you will have to be 1000% fine that I will ignore you." Now, I am by no means stopping her from going overseas. I just don't want the mental load of another person, take into account her wishes, worry if she drowned or dislocated her shoulder, or anything like that. But her rejection sensitivity is very real. She is still a good friend of mine, so I am trying to be gentle with her. I feel like if she goes on this trip with us, I will end up despising her. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. It sounds like your friend is absolutely obnoxious. Like she sounds really attached to you, and she keeps inviting herself into events in your life. And that is really weird and incredibly awkward. So I can completely understand where you're coming from, where you're like, no, I don't want her to come along this time. So I think that not only should you not tell her specifics about your trip, but you can also simply say, no, this trip is just for me and my boyfriend, and then literally leave it at that. If she pries for information, just shut it down immediately. Don't tell her specifics or any dates that you're going or any of the hotels or anything like that, because it literally will not serve you well, and knowing enough about her, she might just try to show up anyways and crash your trip. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be devastated, and I really would start to despise her, especially with all the things that she's done in previous trips. Like she invited herself to your Christmas party even though she doesn't know anybody there. Like that is really obnoxious behavior, and seriously, that needs to be like stomped out as soon as possible. And I also hate to say it, but it really seems like she's attached to you because nobody else wants to be her friend. Like she very clearly uses you as like a doorway to get into these other groups of people, just so she herself can also be included in the conversation. Like I'm not really sure what she's doing, but it really does seem like she's just not self-aware at all about how weird she's acting. The original poster also goes on to say that her friend is neurodivergent, but in my opinion, that is not a good enough excuse to act this way and basically disrupt everybody else's plans as well as the original poster's life. Like, that 100% falls on the friend to figure out and to manage, and it should not be everybody else's responsibility to navigate around her weird idiosyncrasies. So hopefully this conversation goes well, because the way your friend's been treating you in the past is really awful. And although she may be like blissfully unaware of how she's treating you, I think that it might be time to finally put your foot down and say, no, you cannot come with me on this trip. An entitled corrupt pastor demands that I give over $300 for a pledge to his church just so he can secretly buy a brand new Cadillac. But after being treated like garbage after volunteering so much of my time at this church, I decided to get some revenge, resulting in mass panic from the rest of my team, as well as a lot of frustration from everybody involved. Here's what happened. So this happened several years ago, back when I was part of a Christian cult-like church, and I was also in leadership. Back when I was 22 years old and very young and impressionable, as a young adult, I was part of the media team for this church. We were responsible for creating videos and flyers, as well as posting on social media and taking pictures. This was volunteer work, but the pastor, we'll call him Pastor Corruption, was very cold-hearted, he micromanaged a lot, and he was a dictator of the religious institution, while often giving us a last-minute project that would keep us up all night just to try and make a video play during service the next day. I mean, we averaged 3 to 5 hours of sleep per night, but this was while I was in school, so during this time, in order to stay on top of my homework and other projects, I would average close to 2 to 3 hours per night, and to be honest, I'm not sure how I survived. I mean, I even had occasional bouts of paranoia, delusions, and awful depression. Now, Pastor Corruption loved money. He had a giant 6-bedroom house for himself and his wife, and all of this was coupled with heated driveways and the latest model Cadillac, which sat atop of said driveway. The church building itself was overinflated, which sat close to 1,000 people, but maybe had a congregation of only about 400 people or so. But more than Pastor Corruption's love of money was his love for other people's money. 70% of the sermons were regarding how you needed to give the shirt off your back to the church, or else you didn't love God and you were going to hell, which is ironic considering their accountant had been caught embezzling funds in the past. This went beyond any kind of standard tithing, which was 10% of what you make, and included pledges, fundraisers, and giving for church events, as well as going to retreats that made a profit for the attendees, Pastor Corruption, and his pack of goons. And they would shame you for not giving money and for being poor, while also openly bragging about how God blessed them after these rounds of extortion. Well, one day, it is near Pastor Corruption's birthday, and his pack of goons decided that the pastor's car from last year's model was too old, and he definitely needed a brand new car. They took a pledge from all the ministry departments to pay for said car, and the minimum pledge you were allowed to make was about $300, and of course, the media team was no exception. So me, the broke college kid with a minimum wage part-time job, decided that was impossible, and I just wasn't going to pledge anything. This led to several hour-long lectures and shaming sessions, all about how I was seen as a leader and I needed to set an example, which by the way was blatantly not true. I mean, I wasn't seen by anybody because I always worked behind the scenes. So finally, I got fed up and I got worn down to the point that I confessed that I couldn't pledge because that would be taking all of my rent money. I lived with some other leaders from the church at the time, and I shared a room with another girl. $300 doesn't seem like a lot now, but at the time, for not even having my own space or a place for my bed, this honestly was a highway robbery, especially for a broke college kid. A girl who lived with me, who also was lecturing me, told me just to pledge the money anyways, and then I could pay the rent later. So eventually, I was coerced into giving the $300 for Pastor Corruption's stupid car, and now he had 2 brand new Cadillacs sitting in his heated driveway. Well, fast forward, and 3 days after rent was due, the girl who lectured me about pledging comes up and asked me for the rent money. I said to her, look, I don't have it yet. She said to me, what do you mean you don't have it? I gave you 3 extra days to figure out something. So I looked at her and I said, what am I supposed to do here? Do you want me to pull it out of thin air? She then remarked that maybe I should have been more responsible with my spending. But I said to her, look, I have spent $2.16 on myself in the last 3 weeks, and it was to get a coffee so I don't crash my car while driving because of lack of sleep. She then jumped in and said, I'll give you until the end of this week, but but you can't expect us to cover you any longer than that. You are being extremely selfish. So now, on top of worrying about juggling projects between school and the church, I need to worry about not getting evicted. Then I decide to come up with a plan. I'll just pawn off my laptop, since it had just come out recently and I decided to splurge and buy the latest model when my last 6-year-old laptop took a dump on me a few months before. I used it for schoolwork, but they had labs I could use on campus that would help me get by. However, the thing I used it for was media projects for the church. You know how Pastor Corruption likes money? Well, he didn't like spending money. So the media team had a 13-year-old desktop that was overloaded with files, which severely slowed down its already laggy performance, and it caused it to take several hours to render videos. That is, if they don't fail or corrupt. When I had gotten my laptop, it was fairly decent at rendering large files in under 10 minutes, and it had amazing clarity and graphics, so they had convinced me to switch to using my laptop for all things media related rather than using the decade-old desktop. I didn't mind because it didn't interfere with my schoolwork that much, but all the templates for social media and other videos and files were on my laptop now, meaning every week I was responsible for getting everything updated and handing off the final version of the file to the head of the media team. The girls I live with would help me edit these files when we were home, as we were the leaders of the media team. This means that all of the recent files of projects they needed were on my laptop and no backups were made on the church-owned desktop. So I pawned my laptop, I got the rent money, and I paid the leader without saying anything about how I managed to get the money in a single day. Saturday night rolls around, which is usually when we worked on the video files that we needed for the next day. And that's when they asked me where my laptop is so we can get started. But when they asked me, I said, well, I don't have it. They looked at me and said, where is it? But I just responded by saying, I pawned it off. Now, when I said that, they literally could not believe what I said. They said, what? Why? I responded by saying, I needed to pay you rent money. I had no other way to get you the money. I couldn't afford the pledge, but you graciously gave me an extra 3 days to pay it and make up for my rent I used to pay for the pledge. This is one of the most valuable items I own, so I figured it was the quickest way to repay you. Well, when I said that, they all started freaking out. They wanted me to go get the laptop right then and there, but the pawn shop was closed by that point. So they rushed to the church and fire up the desktop and desperately try to recreate the videos we needed from scratch. However, they have no backups since mine was being exclusively used, and the programs and versions that I was using versus what that awful computer had was completely different. In the end, we didn't even have anything ready in time for service that Sunday morning, and the entire media team got yelled at by Pastor Corruption. I got double yelled at by the leaders of the media team, but it was worth it to see them in panic. Several months later, I ended up leaving the church altogether, and I was nice enough to give them all the files of stuff I had on my laptop. My only regret is being so amicable when I left because that place sucked, and I hate Pastor Corruption so much. However, the last I heard, most of the people I knew there have left the church, and the church itself has even downsized considerably, and it's even moved buildings. I assume, though, they never got a new desktop for the media team after I left. This is one of the many outrageous aspects of this church, but it made me never want to deal with organized religion ever again, and now I'm mostly agnostic. Wow, those people were super corrupt and honestly so disgusting. Who in their right mind would be like, okay, pay us $300, and then 3 days later roll up and be like, okay, we need another $300 that you don't have? Like, these people are insane. Like, that money pledge wasn't going to anybody who actually needed the money. It was obviously gonna get that pastor a new car, and that is so corrupt and disgusting. They might as well be stealing people's money and using it for stuff that you're definitely not expecting it to be used for. So honestly, I think with all things considered, I'm so glad the original poster got away from that church, and they were able to, in some kind of roundabout way, get back at these people for treating you so poorly. Because people like this who prey upon other people's like generosity are truly some of the most toxic people on planet Earth. And it's really good to see that you were able to get away from them. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled grandmother is absolutely awful to live with, and despite our several attempts to try and get her to move out, she refuses to leave. And now we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I love my grandmother with all of my heart, but she is very difficult to live with. She moved in about 6 years ago due to a hurricane that damaged her roof. She was only supposed to stay in a couple of months because we were trying to fix her roof, but also she had to get some kind of surgery for her arm. We were understanding, and we just don't want her to stay alone in her new damaged house, all while healing from surgery. So at first, we had no problem with her being here. Within the first few days of surgery, she was acting very sickly, constantly needed help with this or that, but whenever family came over and all the attention was on her, and they were talking to her about things that she likes, she suddenly was no longer sick or fragile. She was running up and down the stairs, showing off all the stuff that she bought. She pretty much forgot that she was a frail old lady. She only came here with a basket of clothes and a suitcase. We thought she came with a suitcase because she travels a lot, because she's a singer and does tours from time to time, but looking back at that now, she was probably plotting to move in with us. When she first moved in, my brother wasn't here, so she got to stay in his bedroom, and it didn't take much time for the room to get kind of stuffy because she loves shopping and buying things, especially things that she doesn't need at all. That room was huge, and for her to take up so much room within a month was just crazy. Another weird thing is that she will buy an entire outfit and then only wear it once for her performance. So just try to imagine how much clothes have been stuffed into my brother's closet. But now try to imagine her buying more clothes, and now she's trying to put that in the closet. And with this spanning her entire career as a performer, she has so many clothing options and shoe options that she's bought all in her house, literally in a single room of her house, that for some reason she never wants to touch or wear again, and yet she still refuses to even get rid of it, even though she completely abandoned her house. And she even bought a storage garage just to fill it up with more useless things that she's never gonna look at again. Well, fast forward, and a couple of months later, my brother wants to move back in. Now, she was angry, so she asked my mother why her own grandson was moving back into his childhood home, while also asking where she's supposed to stay. Well, my mom basically told her that she can go back home now since her arm is healed, and she just came back from tour, so she should have enough money to fix the roof. But she said that a couple $100s from tour isn't nearly enough money to make her move back into her house, which is a complete lie. So she asked if she can move into my mother's personal room. So for reference, my mom has two rooms. Her bedroom that she shares with my dad, and the second room is her hobby room. She barely slept in her bedroom, so that hobby room was her personal room. She did everything in that room. She ran a personal blog for her clothing that she crafted herself. She did makeup tutorials and made beautiful wigs. She was basically a content creator while also being a hairstylist. She needed that room for work and content. My grandmother knew all of these things and insisted on moving in that room. So my mom reluctantly let her move in. And my mom is now miserable and very frustrated because of all of this. She has basically put her life on pause, all because grandma won't move out of that room, and it looks horrendous in there. And I swear, there is a rotting odor in that room. My mom's room was pretty spacious, so when my grandmother moved in there, she did exactly what she does best. She hoards a bunch of stuff. Now, we can't even fit in that room. There's only a small space to walk in and out of it, and there's some weird rotting smell in that room, but I think it's either from a pile of clothes or the fact that my grandmother showers only once a month. Now, I'm not exaggerating here, I seriously counted, and we can all tell when she's showering because of weird noises that she makes in there. And also, this might sound weird, but she absolutely destroys the restroom. Imagine a quiet, peaceful night, and you're about to fall asleep when suddenly you hear Rack City by Tyga inches away from your bedroom in the restroom. And mind you, your bedroom is in front of the restroom, so you have to hear a 70-year-old woman go to the bathroom in there. That kind of gives you a good picture into what I'm dealing with. Also, she's always aware whenever someone else is done cooking. She listens to every sound and movement and knows exactly when you're done cooking food before you can tell anybody else. And then she proceeds to eat most of the dinner. And now we barely cook because she keeps taking all the food. Not only that, but when she does cook, she cooks only for herself. She literally listens to your every move, and she will listen to every conversation you've had in the privacy of your own room. She tries so hard to avoid my mom because my mom wants to have the conversation about when she's going to move out. And my parents' room is right next to the room my grandmother's in, so she's listening to possibly everything that they say and do in there. She knows when my mother is moving around. She knows when we are with our mother and talking to her about whatever. And I'll never forget when we complained about how grandma eats all the food and cooks for no one but herself, and how we were tired and felt so uncomfortable around grandma. But then the next day when she cooks again, she surprises all of us and actually made us something. And this is all a pattern too, by the way, because I know that she hears us complaining in her bedroom, and then after us complaining, the next day she'll order pizza or something like that. I wouldn't even be surprised if there was a peephole in my parents' bedroom. Also, let me just add that we don't care about her cooking for us. We honestly really appreciate it all the time. It's just the fact that we always notice that she is very selfish about it. And the worst part about it is that if we go out to eat some food and we come back home with food for ourselves, she'll just complain and say that we're treating her like garbage. And don't even get me started on fixing up the house, because there is a range of things that she will do. The first few times we tried to talk to her about the house, she would just complain about how she doesn't have the money and how when she tours, she's not making much money and how she's basically being paid pennies to perform. Except that's not true at all, because when we do go to see her perform, she is done with her gig and she actually gets paid. And it's usually about $2,000 or more per performance. So just imagine how much money she makes in a month-long tour. She'll brag about it on Facebook about how much she's getting paid and where she's going. So we know it is definitely not about the money. Then during my freshman year of college, things got even more drastic. Now, every time my mother mentions the house, suddenly my grandma is sick and can't walk and suddenly needs to be pampered and taken care of. She had a pinched nerve in her back, but acted like she just got hit by a train or something like that. Every time I would leave my room, she would moan super loudly. So when I tried to use the restroom, she would moan loud like she needed help. Then I would stay in the restroom and she would suddenly go quiet. Then as soon as I'm back to my room, she starts moaning loud again. Then I stay in my room for a second and then she's quiet again. I mean, she's just completely faking it. I started to ignore her because I knew she didn't need help. But then suddenly she gets up and walks to my mom's room just so she can talk to her. But my mom plays dead because she doesn't want to deal with her either. And then once my grandma sees that my mom is asleep, or at least pretending to be asleep, she just magically straightens up her back and dashes to the restroom as if nothing was wrong with her. She also still does this every time we talk to her about the house or about moving out. Suddenly her back hurts and she can't move, and then she'll call the ER and comes back home the same day because there's nothing actually wrong with her. Now, I know you're probably wondering, well, why not move into an apartment? She has all this money, why not just tell her to get out? Well, we tried that and it didn't work. Actually, she was the one that kept insisting to move into an apartment since she knew we wanted her out of the house. She said that in an argument with my mom, and my mom actually took her to go shopping for apartments the next day. Well, grandma just had to double it, I guess, because as soon as they found the nearest apartments, my grandma said that she needs to go to the emergency room because she thinks her blood pressure is rising. Like, she is so full of garbage. So now you're probably wondering, why not get her to move in with someone else? Well, we've tried that too, and we really regret that so much. My grandma finally contacted my uncle because suddenly she really cares about her only great-grandchild. She spends the whole day there and then comes back home with some garbage. She told our uncle that she was getting mistreated and that my mom was going to kick her out and leave her out on the street. And my uncle for some reason believes this, despite knowing how narcissistic she is, and then starts this big argument with my mom. My mom then explains to my uncle what is actually happening, and he's dumbfounded to find out that his mother is doing what she does best. Then he offers to my grandmother a room in his house if she ever leaves ours. My grandmother later refuses because there isn't a nearby airport and there's nowhere that she can shop for more clothing. And we are all still dumbfounded at how consistently self-centered and narcissistic she truly is. Like, she really does have a self-serving personality. And that wasn't even the only time she went around accusing us of mistreating her. When the ER came to our house during one of her fake episodes, she told one of the people taking her to the hospital that she was so sick and that she had not eaten in days. I mean, we were all about to lose our minds. We just could not believe that she was saying any of that. We were cooking for her, we were heating up soups for her, buying electrolyte water for her. I mean, we were taking care of her, and that's what she decided to do. Throw us under the bus for literally no reason. Luckily, nothing happened after that, but she still does that from time to time, where she will complain to someone that we're trying to throw her out on the streets. I mean, she just loves to play the victim. Unsurprisingly, she also wasn't a good mother to both of her children and pets. The best way I can describe her relationship with my mom is pretty much the movie Mommy Dearest, because she treated her daughter like garbage when my mother was a child. My grandmother always made sure she had the best clothing and shoes and hairdos, while her children constantly struggled, and she treated my mother the worst. She would find any reason just to hurt her. As my mother got older and my grandmother got none the wiser, my grandma was expecting everyone to treat her like a celebrity, and she is still like this. She thinks that she paid her dues and believes now that she is fully entitled to live here with us despite everybody wanting her out of the house. She fully expects everybody to take care of her even if she mistreats them. She also insults everybody and is extremely bigoted. She loves degrading others over their appearance while not looking too good herself herself. She loves making fun of overweight people, despite gaining over 50 pounds within a few years. She also forgot her grandchildren are also pretty overweight themselves. She'll smile and call me pretty and my brother handsome, but then she'll insult her other two grandchildren who don't have to deal with her. Honestly, my grandmother is way too much to handle, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your grandma is a handful. Like, you were not kidding when you said she is obnoxious and a lot to deal with. Like, this lady is basically trying to make it so she never leaves your house. She has invaded all of your space. She's been very rude and disrespectful to your mom and dad and to you and your brother, and she's clearly faking illness just so she can have a place to stay and not have to go back to her house for some reason. Like, seriously, if she really does feel like she's being mistreated, then why on earth would she stick around? Like, she clearly is lying and she doesn't feel that way, and instead just wants to take advantage of your mom and dad's kindness, all while refusing to like move on with her life and go back to her own home. Like, her behavior across the board is completely unacceptable, and I don't blame you for feeling overwhelmed and like really annoyed by your grandma. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would have lived there for 6 years. It would have taken like 1 year of me dealing with that, and then I would have moved out and found my own place. Like, she's already invading everybody's privacy, she's lying to medical staff about how she's being treated, and she is all around just being a nasty person. So in my opinion, it is definitely time for her to get out and find some other place to live. You all have put up with this for 6 years. The only reason she's sticking around is because she has a free place to live, and she has a new batch of people that she can manipulate and treat like garbage. So hopefully that happens sooner than later, because honestly, if I was in your shoes, there is no way on earth I could ever live with that lady. My entitled sister-in-law has over $300,000 in debt and constantly asks money from family members and friends just so she can live a lavish lifestyle. But everything got so much worse after my mother-in-law passed away, as my sister-in-law turned into an absolute monster, doing things to the family that none of us ever expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so for the sake of the story, I'm gonna call my sister-in-law by the name of Shirley. Shirley is not her real name. And trust me when I say this, she is a class act. So she has basically been taking out credit cards as well as loans from banks, friends, and family ever since she turned 16 years old. Because in her words, she didn't want to be a poor, low-class loser like her parents. Well, she has now run up about $300,000 in debt. And this is in a poor country, so it's even worse. She has at least 3 maxed out credit cards, as does her husband, and I'm honestly not even sure how many. She has borrowed untold thousands from her loser parents, as well as from other family members, whom she has criticized endlessly for being low class in private. She borrowed several thousands from my husband several years ago, but he stayed on her to pay him back, even though it took a few years. When he gave her the loan, she said it was to pay off her house. She has a 5-bedroom villa in a very nice area of the city, but instead she put down payments on 2 brand new cars, even though both of her older ones were relatively new and working fine. Her daughter attends an exclusive private school and always has the latest tech. They even go on beach trips a few times a year. Her philosophy is really twisted. She says that she will pay the creditors off a bit at a time by borrowing money from friends and relatives, who are much easier to put off instead of drowning in massive debt. She thinks that she's a genius, that no one else can manage money like her, and she has poked fun at my now husband, and I prefer low-key living as opposed to having all the newest, flashiest things. But here's what makes her a truly terrible person. She basically bled her parents, especially her mom, completely dry of any money. Her parents, who are my in-laws, own their own home. They're not rich, but their pensions cover most of their needs, and my husband helps them out as well. My mother-in-law found out she had cancer a few years ago, and my husband wanted all 3 kids to pitch in and take her to the capital for treatment, and set her up in an Airbnb while she recovered. Shirley refused to contribute, saying that the state-run medical system was fine instead. She said that her husband is a doctor there, and he would oversee everything that was going on. My husband was enraged, but his mom agreed to it, so there was not much that he could do. After a grueling year, my mother-in-law was finally cancer-free. Shirley's husband did periodic checkups, would occasionally send her labs, and she remained in remission. Then, a year later, she began complaining of a pain in her back, and Shirley and her husband brushed it off for months, saying she just needed to rest more. Then, one day, suddenly my mother-in-law couldn't move her legs. After being rushed to the local hospital, the doctors found that she had a massive tumor in her spine that had essentially broken her back. And you know what? The same song and dance occurred again. My husband once again insisted on getting private care in the capital, with Shirley rejecting that outright. treatment. She said she would take care of her in her own home, as her husband had confirmed the cancer was too far advanced and that now she just needed hospice care. And while this did enrage my husband, my mother-in-law also agreed. Shirley suggested that they could hire a team of nurses, but then she requested that my husband pay for that because Shirley can't do it right now, but she will pay him back. So my mother-in-law went into hospice care at Shirley's house, and we were there as much as we could be, but we had a baby and we lived far away. Once while I was there, my mother-in-law pulls my husband aside and tells him that she's scared because Shirley has been pressuring her to sign some documents and the painkillers were fogging up her brain and she simply didn't understand. Shirley told us that they were just power of attorney documents to allow her to make emergency decisions. Now, we were uncomfortable, but since my mother-in-law was living there and Shirley's husband is a doctor, we thought it would be okay. Well, eventually my mother-in-law passed away, and the day of the funeral came around with Shirley and her family nowhere to be found. We called and called, but we got no answer. We asked one of the aunts about it, and she just rolled her eyes and told us what happened. Apparently, this aunt had been planning the funeral with Shirley and my father-in-law, and during the planning process, she discovered that Shirley had convinced my mother-in-law about a year ago, right before the doctors found the cancer, and while her doctor husband had been caring for her, to take out a life insurance policy on herself, with Shirley as the sole beneficiary. We would later find out that she somehow bribed a notary to fake the death certificate date, as well as the cause of death, so that she got more money. I'm not sure how that worked, but that's what I was told. In the country we were living in, pretty much anything is possible with a bit of cash. She had also convinced my in-laws to sign over ownership of the house to her, so she could secure another large loan from the bank using the house as collateral. But the house was actually supposed to go to my husband and my brother-in-law. Well, my husband and brother-in-law get on the phone with Shirley and confront her. Shirley starts screaming at them, telling them their lives have been so much easier than hers, and that she has done so much more for their parents than they have, as well as telling a whole bunch of lies about how my husband has always been a freeloader. But for the record, he has worked since he was 13 years old, he paid for his own education, and has a higher level job after working like a dog for 2 decades. She said everyone has always taken advantage of her, and that's why she is in so much debt, because in her eyes, everyone else is at fault except for her. We did go no contact after that, but my brother-in-law and father-in-law have gotten sucked back into her orbit again, and both have loaned her money. She has even been trying to get my father-in-law to let her sell the house for him, and then she'll give him an allowance every month out of the money from the sale, and he can live with her. Meanwhile, my husband and I moved to the United States, and we are enjoying our debt-free lives, ever thankful that we live far away from my sister-in-law. Wow, that sister-in-law seriously has worked the system from the very beginning. Like, that is insane to me that you would rack up $300,000 in debt. And this is all stuff that would have been preventable. It doesn't even sound like reasonable debt that you would have from, like, I don't know, having a house or a car or something like that. This all sounds like frivolous spending from someone who is really irresponsible and clearly super entitled. So with all things considered, I'm so glad you're away from this lady, because she is incredibly toxic. And anyone at this point who gives her money or loans her anything might as well kiss that goodbye, because based on her history, there is no way she's ever gonna pay anybody back. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mom has an emotional breakdown every time I tell her that I'm moving out, and despite the fact that I'm going to another city to pursue my job of choice, she is still absolutely furious that I'm leaving, demanding that I take a lower paying job in my hometown just so I could still be around. Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I just finished college with my BSN, and I got my registered nurse license earlier this week. I've been offered a position in my desired specialty the next state over, about 5 hours away. The city is double the size of my current town and has much higher crime rates, but it's a good opportunity and I'm excited about starting a new adventure. But the only people who are not excited for me are my family, especially my mom. She is just so angry at the prospect of me taking this job. She's mad that the pay is lower than my other opportunities, that there's no sign-on bonus, and that I will know no one in my new city. She ignores me when I tell her that new grad positions in my specialty are few and far between, that I'm not signing a contract that locks me to the hospital, that the hospital has excellent ratios, and that I'm 22 years old with no significant other or children tying me to my hometown, that I have no significant asset to lose if I do fail, thus making this the best time to take a chance. She is just so focused focused on being angry. She keeps making passive-aggressive comments about how I feel that she didn't support me enough through college, which isn't true. I paid my way through my bachelor's degree on my own, and she hates me saying that. I know she'll be hurt if I don't involve her in the moving process, but when I do try to involve her, such as showing her apartment or looking at furniture, she just blows up and accuses me of shoving it in her face. Last night, she tried once again to convince me to apply to other jobs closer to home after she asked what my plan was, and I gave her the same answer I've been giving for over a month. When I pointed out that these jobs were at hospitals with poor ratios and bad reputations, and not in my desired specialty, she blew up again, told me that she's not arguing with me, and then went to bed for the night. I'm just so exhausted, and beyond that, I'm hurt. Her neighbor's 19-year-old son just left for the Air Force, and she talks frequently about how awful his stepmother is for being mad about him leaving when he's such a good and sweet kid. I've spent my entire life trying to please her. I didn't even apply to schools outside of my hometown when I graduated high school. I paid for my degree so my parents didn't have to shoulder the burden. I worked 2 to 3 jobs around the clock since I was 18 years old, despite being a full-time student. I've never tried any illegal substances. I barely drink. I've broken up with partners to make her happy. I'm also very involved in helping with my chronically ill younger sister and my delinquent little brother. I'm in a constant anxious state of trying my best, if that makes sense, and it's a constant march towards an unattainable goal. And yet in her eyes, I'm not good enough, nor responsible enough, nor ready to try to be independent. Look, I love my mom and my family. I feel so guilty about leaving that it's literally eating me up inside. I'm supposed to move in a week from today, and I have no idea how to leave on good terms between us. She keeps giving me bills for various things, and I'm worried that she's going to charge me more once I'm actually gone, and my savings will be totally depleted. And right now, I'm just so exhausted, and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your mom's being toxic for a few reasons, but one of the bigger reasons is the fact that she only wants you to stick around because she doesn't want to take care of your sister and your brother, or even take care of the bills around the house or stuff like that. In my opinion, I think you've worked very hard for your nursing degree, and for your mom to be like, no, stay with us, take care of us instead, or even try to hold you back in some kind of way just to make herself happy, that is honestly such a criminal thing for her to do, and if I were in your shoes, I would ignore her completely, because you literally have your whole career ahead of you. You're about to have a nursing job in your specialty, and this is in a city that's away from your hometown. And sure, you feel guilty about leaving your hometown and it's eating you up inside, and I totally understand where you're coming from, but I really think that this job is a huge opportunity for you, and to turn it down just to make your mom happy once again in your life would be a massive mistake. So hopefully that transition can go well, and hopefully she doesn't try to shove all these bills on your back, because frankly, she's only doing that because you're leaving. And honestly, I think you really need to start stepping up for yourself and move forward with your career. I can no longer take my boyfriend's incompetence, especially when it comes to keeping the house clean. And at this point, I'm so grossed out and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years and living together for 3 months. He is so loving, caring, sweet, kind, and just about everything. He has helped me through so much in the short time that we've been together, and I can always rely on him to be my support system. However, he is so messy, and I really mean incredibly messy, and that's not for lack of trying. I do most of the cooking, so he does most of the cleaning, and by that, I mean tidying. He never does any deep cleans like properly sweeping everything, wiping things down, or stuff like that. When we first met, he didn't realize you had to go back and forth hoovering, or that you have to lift things up to vacuum under them, or lift things up to wipe down underneath them. But I will say I have taught him how to clean. I have shown him how to do it. I've written him step-by-step instructions on what to do, and this hasn't happened once or twice. This has happened numerous times. Today, I came home after staying at my parents' house, and I was gone for a month and asked him to clean the house. Well, he said that he did, and he was really excited to show me. I went to the bedroom, and immediately there was filth everywhere. Food packages, clumps of hair, cans, bits of general waste, and loads of dust. I go to the bathroom, and his beard hair is all over the floor, but he shaved it 2 days ago. My pads are still in the bin, and it stinks. The whole carpet is filthy, and I feel so uncomfortable even walking on it with my bare feet. I immediately tidy up as much as I can, and I start crying. I was on an 8-hour coach trip and came back to this. The whole time I'm tidying, he's telling me to stop, saying he washed the dishes and all this other stuff, and he thought that he did a really good job. At night, he asked me why I was in a mood, and I admitted that I expected things to be clean, and him being so excited to show me a clean house that is actually filthy has made me realize I expect too much from him, and that I cannot live the rest of my life like this. He then went off in a mood and went to bed. Worse yet, the bed is lumpy because there's lumps of God knows what under the sheets that he obviously didn't brush off before putting clean sheets on. It's making me feel so dirty and gross, but I don't want to sleep on the sofa and make things worse. Honestly, I can't live my life like this. I feel disgusted, filthy, and stressed, but besides all of that, my boyfriend is wonderful, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, there's no way on earth I would ever want to still live with that guy. If I was in your shoes and I knew for a fact that my bed wasn't clean, let alone the rest of the house, I would immediately be like, okay, I gotta find a place to live. But also, this is a very good look into who you would be living with if you did decide to get married in the future. Because what you're describing is honestly unacceptable, and I can't honestly think of a good reason for anyone to be this messy. Am I the jerk for cooking dinner for my girlfriend instead of taking her out like I promised earlier in the week? Because right now she is very angry with me, and at this point I don't know what to do. So my girlfriend and I have been dating for a little over a year. We're both in college, and to be honest, I don't feel like going out most of the time. So I almost always suggest my girlfriend to stay in my apartment and to order something or to cook something instead of going out. I often don't want to go to parties or such with her, which annoys her a lot. The other day, my girlfriend mentioned a new sushi restaurant in our town and asked if we could go. Originally, I agreed. I said that we could go on Friday. However, I didn't feel like going out last night. So instead, I cooked dinner for us, and when she came to my apartment, I told her that we could leave it for another day and eat at home. Well, when I did that, she was annoyed and said that I always do the same thing, but I told her to chill out because we could go on another day. I mean, it's not like the restaurant's going anywhere. I cooked carbonara pasta for dinner, but my girlfriend said that she won't have it because she wants fish and not pasta. I told her, okay, we can order sushi if you want, and I just rolled my eyes, which made her go off on me, telling me that she feels like I want to hide her, as if I'm embarrassed by her or something like that, even though that's definitely not the truth at all. She knows my family and friends, and I make all the time that I can to spend time with her, and I'm certainly not ashamed of her because why would I be? I'm just not an outgoing person, and she knows it. She had said something similar a few months ago because I didn't post enough about her on social media. I also got upset over her comment, and I told her that she can leave if she doesn't like how I am, but then she got her stuff and she did in fact leave. I sent her a message today so that we could talk and try and make up, and she told me to give her 1 or 2 days to think about it. Now, I don't think that what I did was that awful, but seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, to be completely honest with you, yes, I do think you're the jerk here. You promised your girlfriend you're gonna go out and get sushi on Friday night, and instead of talking to her and being like, hey, let's have different plans or something like that, you decided to make the plans for her and be like, psych, we're gonna eat some pasta here at my house. Like, what are you doing? That's like super rude. You just completely ignored all of your plans and said, okay, we're gonna do it my way because I don't like going out. Like, if you're gonna make plans, at least have the decency of following through instead of changing them suddenly all because you don't like them. Like, that's the worst part about it, because I can completely understand where your girlfriend's coming from. She's tired of eating at your house, and you know what? She's right. It is the same thing over and over again. And the fact that you don't see that, or maybe you don't want to see that, is like really toxic in my opinion. So yes, I think you are the jerk, and I think your girlfriend has every right to be upset with you, especially for changing plans without talking to her first. Am I the jerk for telling my parents and my sisters that I don't need them to name my baby, and that I will never use any of the names that they suggest? Because right now, it's all getting super obnoxious, and at this point, I don't know what to do. I'm an 18-year-old female, and my boyfriend and I are expecting a baby. His family is so kind and supportive, but most of mine are not, with the exception of my 2 brothers who are great. The rest of my family say we are too young and have second-guessed all of my choices, from researching formula because I won't be breastfeeding, to the names that we have looked at. I moved in with my boyfriend a couple of months ago, which was a little earlier than we had planned, but we both wanted to get away from the comments. We have started buying stuff, and we know we're having a little boy. My parents and sisters originally told me that when they heard I was having a boy, that they think that I should name him after George, who's my great-grandfather. I told them we weren't looking for name suggestions and asked them to not push the issue. Then they asked what the name we were thinking of was, and I said we weren't going to share until he's here. Well, that wasn't taken very well, and they decided that we must have an awful name lined up, so they made a list of a bunch of names that they thought would be good. But I told them again that we did not want or need names suggested because we had our own ideas. I ignored them the next couple of times that they mentioned names, but then Christmas Day, they had a field day because my oldest sister grabbed my phone while while I was in the bathroom, and she searched for a list that I had on there. We were at my older brother's house, by the way, and she showed my mom and my other sisters, and she tried to involve my brothers, but my oldest brother told them that they can leave if they wanted to start stuff at my house in front of his family. But they did end up starting some drama and asked me what in the world I was thinking and demanded that I choose one of their names. The names that set them off were Sloan and Finley. They were the two I had on a list on my phone, and my brother did have to kick them out in the end because they said I could not ruin my son with a name like that, and then said my boyfriend was a bad influence because he wants another dumb name like Jackson. I told them I was just as much a part of the naming of mine and my boyfriend's baby, and just because the names aren't to their taste doesn't mean they have the right to insult us. I had to block them on my phone since Christmas because they were going crazy blowing up my phone. But then I got an email with an even longer list of names 2 days ago, so I unblocked them temporarily, and in a family group chat, I told them that this is my baby and I do not need or want them to name him for me, and I will not entertain a single name on their list, and because they've annoyed me, I will never use any one of those names ever. I blocked them again, and my brother showed me screenshots of where they were going off. They find it funny, but I know for a fact they had to mute the chat. I feel kind of bad now, and my parents and sisters are calling me out. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk here. Your family is so intrusive. Like seriously, your sisters went into your phone to find the list of names you had for your son? Like that is so invasive, it's not even funny. Like they are really determined to make sure you pick a name that they like. And I'm kind of convinced based on the way your sisters have been acting that you could have had any name on that list and it still would not have been good enough for any of those people. And it's not like you didn't make your wishes known. These people were well aware that you did not like any of these stupid names and you didn't want this constant chatter about what you're naming your son. Because you 100% have this right. This is between you and your boyfriend. And the rest of these people are literally just getting in the way. Like they're all interjecting with their weird opinion about what you should and shouldn't do. And they're only doing this to you, by the way, because you're 18 years old. And they still feel some kind of ownership over what you can and cannot do. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your family is being super intrusive. And I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have blocked them as well. My entitled sister tries to forcibly transfer my kids to another school, all so that my kids can go to school with her kids. And when I found out about that, I was absolutely livid, resulting in one of the most chaotic episodes my family has ever experienced. Here's what happened. Also, this story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So to start things out, I recently moved to a new house on the side of town my sister lives on. You see, I transferred my daughter to the same school as my niece and nephew because we lived in the same neighborhood. At the beginning, it was alright, and there was an unspoken agreement between the both of us that she would take them to school while I picked them up from school. But unfortunately, this is where things get a little bit hairy. There was a little bully in the class that bullied my nephew, and the school is investigating the matter, but my sister wanted to transfer her kids and mine together to a new school that just so happens to be very far from my house that I live in. And the thing is, I recently moved and transferred both of my kids to the school that's close, and I can walk there if needed, so it was too much all at once after just moving in. They're just now getting used to the new routine at school, the new people around them, and new friends and teachers. I'm also very close with both of my daughters, and I give them advice when needed, and I definitely don't judge them. I live with my mother, and I had to use her car to pick up the kids after school because my car was totaled after a fire inside of the engine. So it was my mom's gas in the car, and I only agreed to pick up the kids. That is it. So we transferred to different schools, and after already transferring them, she wants me to transfer my daughter to the school that's close to the house that she lives in now, which is the one that she lives in with her new boyfriend and his daughter. And by the way, as a side note, this is after she left her husband of 6 years to be with him after only knowing him for 2.5 months. And it really seems like she's trying to make him the center of her entire life. Well, I told her I wasn't going to uproot what they have now just to satisfy her need of being addicted to the guy that she's with now. She even literally asked me who was going to pick up her kids after school if she's at work. And where the agreement stood is that if they're all at the same school, then I would pick them all up after school while she is at work. Gas prices are very high here, and I had to quit my job to move here since it was too far to drive, and it honestly was just not worth it to do that. Since the school is right down the road, it wouldn't be much trouble, and it's not going to be that much gas. Well, the agreement was broken the moment she wanted wanted to transfer her and my kid to a school 3 miles away from my new house. She even tried to transfer my daughter without my say-so, even going as far as going up there and signing transfer agreements for 3 kids, which really upset me because she has no right to do that. And when she did that, I told her off. But she said to me, "But I thought that you would agree since, you were picking them up, right?" Well, I just blew up on her, telling her that it's not right and that she's not her parent to do such a thing. We were yelling at each other and my mom had to get involved since she agreed to let me use her car and it was her gas and money being wasted. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand she transferred her kids because of her son, but it doesn't mean that I have to do what she wants just because we live over here now. And the agreement was because of much different reasons. Now, I thought the argument was done, especially after my mom asked for babysitting money for watching her kids after school until she got off work. I mean, I did not agree to watch them after getting them because they are really bad. I know my kids aren't angels, but man, they look like angels compared to them. You see, I could not pick them up one day because my mom had to go to physical therapy, and she definitely knew about it. Because I had to drive her, I picked up my daughters early from their schools. I then texted her and I told her to have her husband come and pick up his kids after school because I wasn't going to pick them up that day because of it, and she said okay. And I think you can see exactly where this is going. She never contacted him, and I had to after texting her because I knew my sister. So I called him and I told him everything from the beginning of the agreement to now, and he understood and he ended up picking them up. Now, the messed up thing was that he didn't even know about them transferring to different schools, and this guy is their biological dad. She's been keeping quiet about it, and it really upsets me because she knows what it's like to not have her biological dad around. After I called him, I told my mom everything and she understood. After the physical therapy was done and I had to get my mom into the car and turned on my phone, I was flooded with messages from her, all because of the phone call to her husband to get his kids. She said stuff like, "How dare you have him pick up my kids?" and other things like that. Well, I just ignored it and I gave my phone to my mom so that she could hang on to it while I drove home. Message after message, my mom got tired of it and ended up calling her on her own phone. I asked her what was so wrong about her husband picking up his kids, and my sister went on a full rant about it. And you can see my mom's face turn from not stressed out to being very stressed out in a matter of seconds. And I had to pull over on the highway just to take the phone from my mom and hang up. I put both of our phones on silent and I tried to calm my mom down since my sister was yelling at her through the phone. I just couldn't deal with her yelling at my mom like that. My mom was almost crying at this point, and my daughters in the back seat are seeing and hearing their grandmother break down in front of them. I told my mom to stay out of it from now on and that it's now just between me and her. We finally got home and my sister was at my house waiting for me. Well, I got out of the car and she started yelling at our mom. I was so livid, I told my girls to go inside the house and stay there. Our mom's face was on the verge of crying again, and that right there is what made me so livid. I stood in front of our mom and I said that if you say one more word, I'm gonna slap you in the face. I explained that I was the one that called him and I was the one that told him everything. So you need to yell at me and not at our mom. Well, she looked at me in the eyes and knew right then and there that I would not put up with disrespecting our mother like that. I told her that I only told my mom the details of the argument between us, and I told her that I did not want her to be a part of it. Well, my sister started yelling at me. She yelled about sisterhood and how I could even do this to her. I gave my mom a little hand motion and I told her to go inside. And right when she got inside, I laid on her everything that built up from the beginning of the school year to now, from her divorce to her cheating, all the way to her bringing a new man into her kids' lives that she has only known for about 2 months. I also yelled at her about her making our mother cry, as well as taking her kids from their biological father and not letting him be involved with anything they do. And I told her that her behavior was absolutely disgusting. Well, with everything I was saying, I did not notice my stepdad getting home from work. He heard everything I told her, and he was livid that our mother was crying about this, and also chimed in and yelled at my sister and told her to leave right now. Well, my sister started crying and then she left. My stepdad then turned to me and asked what this was all about, and I came clean about everything that I was hiding from him, and let me tell you something, the more I told him, the more angry he got. After I was done, he turned and didn't say a single word. He got to the door, and he said he was going to calm our mother down and that I should just take care of my girls. And when I look back on these chain of events, it all started with us moving, and then it led led to my sister trying to be the queen of everything. I realized that my sister wanted the whole cake and she wanted to eat it as well. So honestly, am I the jerk for not transferring my daughter to the same school as her kids? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your sister is crazy. First of all, she tried to transfer your kids to another school without your permission. Like, that is some criminal level behavior that in my opinion is so unacceptable. That alone would have broken any kind of deal I would have made with this sister right from the get-go. And I'm really kind of convinced that the only reason she wanted your kids at her school was all due to the fact that you were picking them up from school. She probably didn't even care about your kids going to school with her kids. I bet you, if anything, this is all just a matter of convenience, and she just wanted you around so you could take care of her kids. But regardless, honestly, your sister sounds incredibly toxic, and there is no way I would ever do any kind of favor for her, especially after acting like this. Like, this 100% would inform my future interactions with my sister, especially with her trying to transfer my kid against my will. Like, that is insane to me. And hopefully you don't have to deal with her in this capacity ever again, because with all things considered, honestly, that sounds like an absolute nightmare. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my sister and her family to leave my house after my sister started to curse at me? Here's what happened. So my sister, her husband, and my niece come to my house almost every weekend. And this weekend, my daughter had committed to my niece to help her put together a Lego set. They arrived at our house, and when they came in, my daughter was playing a game, and my niece was eating some dinner that they had bought her. And my sister was eating as well, but also was very clearly expressing some anger and frustration with her husband, who was in the family room playing video games with my husband. And well, this was the plan all along, for our husbands to play games together, and my daughter and niece to build Legos. It was super early in the night, maybe about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, so there was a lot of time for everyone to get everything, because they are usually here until about 11 o'clock on a weekend. My niece finishes her food, and my sister was fussing. I actually said to my husband I may leave and run some errands, because I do not like the energy in here. I packed up the food that my niece didn't finish, and I put it in a bag for her. My niece then starts to open up the Legos, and that was totally fine. She is 7 years old and capable of starting this task. We were just letting her do her own thing. Meanwhile, my daughter was still playing her game. My sister says, "Sarah, are you gonna get up? Jane is opening up everything and she's ready." Sarah then responded that she was coming in just a little bit. My sister goes in and starts helping my niece and says, "Well, now you need some scissors. I thought the teen, almost young adult was gonna get up and help you." And when I heard that, this is when I chimed in. I responded by saying, "Sarah doesn't have to hop up just because Jane is done eating and ready. She'll be ready in just a minute." I then put a pair of scissors on the table. After about 3 to 4 minutes, Sarah goes in and starts helping out. Well, my sister is on the phone and grumbling about something else. She then says, "Oh, Sarah, it's okay. I don't want your mom to think I'm forcing you to come and help." I then responded and I say, "Hey, that's really not necessary." And I tried to explain that I was just saying they both could be patient while Sarah was finishing up what she was doing. My sister then cuts me off and says, "Listen, whatever you're upset about, you don't need to take it out on me." She then proceeds to start yelling and cursing at me, telling me that I need to shut up, while also asking me if I really needed to take this up to another level because she's already not in the mood and she's about to go there with me. Well, without yelling at her, I said to her, "You need to go. It's time for you to go home." She says fine and then says to me, "I didn't want to come over here anyways today." And when she said that, I didn't say anything and I just let them leave. Later, my husband said that my sister and I kind of ruined things for him and my brother-in-law, and that they were not able to hang out like they were expecting to. I said to him, "Okay, but I mean, was I wrong?" Because honestly, I don't think anyone should be able to come into my house and disrupt my peace just because they're in a bad mood. Well, my husband responded by saying, "You don't put family out of your own house." So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, your husband wasn't even in there when this all went down. He was having a good time with his brother-in-law, which is fantastic, good for him, but in reality, Jane was being insane, and she had this weird temper that she clearly took out on the original poster. Like, she came into this person's house with a bad attitude as it is, and she clearly was trying to take it out on somebody else. And you know what? Family or not, you do not have to take that for another second. In my opinion, I think the original poster was completely right to ask them to leave, because that kind of behavior of swearing and talking to people like that is unacceptable. I don't care who they are, if you're
you're gonna act like that, then you've gotta go home. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think your husband seriously does not know what he's talking about. Because while he was playing Xbox with his brother-in-law, your sister was acting like a complete jerk. And in my opinion, you were completely justified to kick her out. My fiance's family is very contentious towards me and my fiance. And now, as a result, I'm considering breaking off this engagement because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently engaged to my long-term boyfriend, and I am having some doubts about going through with the wedding. He is a very sweet, kind, intelligent guy, and we've had a lovely relationship. For some reason though, I'm finding myself really struggling to envision myself on my wedding day. I've obviously communicated these anxieties and concerns to him, and he's been very understanding and patient, but I find myself going back and forth. He's told me that he appreciates my honesty, and we have solid communication, all things considered. The main reason I've been having some anxiety about our relationship is somehow linked to a challenge I thought we had worked through, but in reality, I think I may simply be in denial. He comes from a very big family that is very tightly knit, and every time I'm with them, I feel as though I'm a guest in a very big tribe. His parents live about 6 hours away via plane, and my fiance moved back in with his parents after graduation and stayed there a few years before joining me, where I was living and studying for law school. Now, none of that is a problem in and of itself, but the first time we introduced our families, I noticed that his parents were not very interested in learning about my family and almost exclusively spoke of themselves. They also have this habit of booking family vacations and holiday plans, all without consulting with my fiance and I, and then expecting us to change our plans and schedules for work, and they are not very understanding if we can only join for portions of the trip. I'm always happy to see them, but after a few days with them, I always end up with somewhat of a bad feeling. I can also tell that his parents aren't particularly thrilled with some of his lifestyle changes that he's adopted, and this is all since we have moved in together. None of which, by the way, I've enforced on him, but it is something that he says he's been inspired and happy to take on. For example, he is now a vegetarian, and his mother always makes snide comments about whether he's feeding himself decently. We recently saw them for a week for a Christmas vacation in Mexico. My fiance and I had plans to take PTO to go see my parents for my dad's 60th birthday, with this all taking place in early January. Now, I only recently learned that he in fact hadn't told his parents about this trip, and they told us that we were invited to join them, as well as pretty much everybody else in the family in Mexico for a week. We thanked them profusely, and I told him that it would be great if it all worked out alongside the trip that we already planned, just so that we could see my family. I also told him that I wasn't comfortable not paying for my place, and I would want to know how much it would cost. So we told them that we were interested in joining, but we would get back to them about the number of days that we could join, only to then learn that they had booked us for the entire time. Now, I'm not complaining, that is very sweet of them, but that made it very hard, and my fiance has to abridge the days he'd be joining me and my family. He was also a little upset about the poor communication, but never asked them about how much the trip had cost in total. He said he assumed that meant we were invited and that our seats were paid for. Well, the trip itself goes smoothly, and we are all staying in the same hotel and on the same floor, and we meet up every day for dinner and sometimes lunch and other activities. It is a big family, and the age range is quite vast. We go on a few day trips with the family, and all in all, I'm under the impression that we are having an enjoyable time. We come home from the trip, we have some downtime, and then we go to see my parents, and everything goes well. And eventually, we come home. When I got home, my fiance tells me that it isn't fair that while we were with my parents for 4 days, we spent the time there together and exploring NYC, and that while we were in Mexico with his, we had a lot of downtime and spent a lot of time swimming and reading by the pool with just the two of us. I told him I had no idea he was unhappy about the time repatriation for the trip. He then explained that his parents wished that they had more quality time with him, so I asked if I should simply have not joined in. I mean, we were there for essentially 9 days, including travel days, and had all meals together except for breakfast, and I never declined plans to be with them. He then tells me his mother asked him to come back home after said Mexico vacation, as she was under the impression he wasn't joining my family and I in New York City, while also adding that she missed him terribly. And it was at this point that I got quite upset, as our trip with my parents had been booked a long time prior, and that it wasn't my responsibility to communicate with his mother. The craziest thing is that we had seen them 3 weeks prior when we met up in a halfway city for a weekend, which is the same week
weekend he ended up proposing to me on, and that even during that weekend, he didn't take the time to have our proposal be intimate with just the two of us, and instead included his family, even though I had told him I wanted this to be a private event. I also can't shake off the feeling that his family simply doesn't love or like me that much, and it's almost like me having my own family and identity bothers them when they're all together. And it's not like I speak only about my family or go against the current in any kind of way. My fiance told me that I embarrass them by bringing up topics that no one would know the knowledge about, and that I'm doing this in some kind of way to humiliate them, which honestly could not be further from the truth. They don't really strike up conversations that much, but I honestly love to talk about different things. And we're talking stuff like art or history or culture or current events. It's never anything political or contentious, and I honestly think his family is upset that I'm different from them in that way. But I found it to be very insulting that he would ask me to tone down being myself simply because his family didn't want to or couldn't converse with me during the numerous meals that we shared together. I'm also worried about if my relationship with my in-laws is fragile before marriage. I don't want to sign up for an entire lifetime of stress. I really don't want my future children to see me and my husband fighting about the in-laws, and instead I would want to be appreciated by the family I marry into. I also only recently found out that my fiance did in fact forward $2,000 to his family after this Christmas vacation, but didn't tell me about it until now. I wish I had known in advance how much money it would cost, and I don't understand why he didn't just ask them as I told him to do originally. Honestly, this all seems so confusing, and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it really seems like the family, based on what you've described, really doesn't like you. But I think more importantly, it really seems like your fiance is doing nothing about it. Like he is running behind the shadows, almost working as like an in-between between you and his family, and it really seems like this is at your detriment. Like, why is he not coming to your defense more and trying to I don't know, defend your honor or your name or something like that? Like, this guy's even trying to get you to change your personality around his family. Like, what kind of person would do that? Why would you not want to stand next to your fiance and be like, yes, this is who I want to marry? Instead, everything seems so secretive and really weird for some reason. Like, if your fiance truly believes that you are trying to humiliate his family, then that, in my opinion, is not a good fit. Like, that's a massive red flag, and that, in my opinion, shows he would care way more about them than he would ever care about you if anything went down. And I get it, he has a really strong relationship with his whole family, but as a result, he's basically pushing you to the wayside and treating you as some kind of troubled child instead of your fiance. This all seems really weird in my opinion from my perspective, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very frustrated with this kind of behavior. Because you guys have been together for over 5 years, and if he is still seriously not comfortable with you being involved in his family, then I seriously just don't see this working out in the long run. My entitled mother-in-law keeps making up lies and rumors about me just to tarnish my reputation with my new extended family. And now, after dealing with this for so many years, my fiance and I are considering canceling our wedding and eloping instead, all because of how obnoxious my mother-in-law truly is being. And at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, here's the thing. My fiance and I are considering canceling our wedding and simply eloping instead, all because of my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law has never tried to have a positive relationship with me ever. She makes sure I'm not included in conversations, she belittles my achievements and talks down to me, and things especially escalated when I was planning my fiance's 30th birthday. My mother-in-law fought me on every single detail and accused me of not knowing my fiance at all. For reference, I planned a golf weekend away from him and his family, and I did that because he loves golf. Well, my fiance confronted my mother-in-law and asked why she doesn't like me. And that's when she finally admitted that yes, she doesn't like me. She doesn't like my partner driving me to his family events. She didn't like that it took me a month to find employment when I moved to a different town to be with my fiance. My fiance would receive calls and text messages from my mother-in-law on a daily basis, and if he doesn't respond, she would blame me for that. My fiance told her if she doesn't stop this behavior towards me, he will no longer speak with her. And I even agreed to meet with my mother-in-law to try and smooth things over, just so we could all move forward. But she simply never took me up on it. And for a while, things seemed okay, but fast forward to my fiance's brother's wedding, and trust me, things got really weird. The wedding day arrives, and we were to be at the venue at 4:00 p.m. Well, 5 minutes to 2 p.m., my fiance receives a phone call from my mother-in-law saying that the family photo shoot is in 5 minutes. And here's the thing, we had not been told of a family photo shoot at all. My mother-in-law demands that we arrive at 2 o'clock for just that. So we frantically get ready and we arrive at the house where the wedding is taking place. And you know what? There was never even a photo shoot planned. My mother-in-law comes out in her pajamas and tries to hand me suit shirts that she wanted me to iron, but I simply refused. She ended up snapping at me, asking where my son is. But I explained that my son was never coming as he's at the hotel and he's staying there. Well, my mother-in-law continues stating that everyone thought that he would be there, but I responded that he was never coming and that the RSVP was just for me and my fiance. And here's the thing, she was told multiple times that my son was not going to be there. Fast forward and the ceremony is over and I started to have guests come up to me asking where my son is. Now, I don't even know these people by name, but I just tell them that he's at the hotel. And when I said that, their looks of disgust completely threw me off. I eventually realized that my new friends had stopped talking to me, and I realized that these people were being told my son was at the hotel, but they were not told that he is old enough to be there by himself. He is a teenager after all. And very quickly, the wedding was a place of ridicule and disgust all towards me. Fast forward to another incident, and on Christmas Day at my mother-in-law's house, her family scurried away from me on arrival, refusing to hug me or even greet me. One man, whom I met maybe about 2 years ago, aggressively accused me of leaving my son alone on Christmas Day, even though my son was at his father's place this year. The rumor has continued, and now not only does my mother-in-law hate me, but so does her entire family. I made up an excuse to announce the fact that my son was a teenager who had just finished his first year of high school at the top of his class. And it's right about then everybody's jaw dropped. None of them had a single clue that he was a teenager. And after I did that, my mother-in-law hurried out the room. Well, now my fiance wants to cancel the wedding and just simply elope, all because of his mother. My fiance is demanding that I speak with my mother-in-law one last time in order for him to finally cut her off. So honestly, would we be jerks if we cancel our wedding because of this? What should we do? Wow, your mother-in-law is absolutely trying to ruin your life and your wedding. Like, this literally just doesn't make any sense to me. She treats you like garbage for literally no reason. She blames all these supposed problems on you. And worst of all, she is lying about you just to hurt your reputation. Like, just imagine trying to plan a wedding with this lady. She's clearly trying to hurt your reputation and make your life a living nightmare, despite the fact that you and your fiance are on the same page. So honestly, I would not want to plan a wedding with this woman. I would not want her anywhere near my wedding, because I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, she would probably try everything that she could just to ruin the experience. So honestly, I don't think anybody would blame you for just canceling your wedding and eloping instead, because your mother-in-law sounds insane, and there's no way I would ever want to put up with that if I was in your shoes. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled father is constantly trying to start arguments with me, all because my fiance is from South Korea, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance is currently in South Korea while I'm living in New York. We're doing long distance for a bit, and it's been very hard on us to be apart, but I know that it won't last. Luckily for us, it will be a year max of being apart, so it is not a very long time. I have spent some time in South Korea, and I really love it there. I'm going back in August for the month, and I'm very excited. Of course, whenever I get back to South Korea, my parents don't hold back from expressing their concerns about the tensions between North and South Korea. My fiance's dad is the top military official of South Korea who has recently retired, so I trust him, my future father-in-law, rather than what I see in the media. I have talked to my future father-in-law when I was in South Korea about this very same subject, and he said he can't figure out why so many people in the United States are afraid of Kim Jong-un. He thinks the man is a big joke. My parents always go as far as to say that people in South Korea are living with bags over their heads and are completely blind to the problems with North Korea. I end up telling my parents to acknowledge the issues that we have in the US first, rather than talking poorly about South Korea. The other day, my dad sent in the family group chat an article about tensions between North and South Korea. I said in the chat, please refrain from sending me anything having to do with North and South Korea. Well, tonight during dinner, my dad pulled up an article about North and South Korea, and he showed it to me while laughing and smiling. Well, let's just say I finally blew up on him. I told him that I asked him to refrain refrain from showing me this type of stuff, and that's when he said that I'm just as ignorant as everybody else in South Korea. I then raised my voice, and I said that I work in a school, so I have a higher chance of something horrible happening to me there, and that I have felt safe every single time I've been to South Korea. My dad told me he's sick of hearing how amazing South Korea is, and that I'm too blinded by how dangerous it really is there. I ended up yelling some more, and then I just left. Now, here's the thing. I'm not proud of raising my voice, but I'm so upset with my dad with the way he smiled and laughed, like he was taking pride in bringing this up again. Long distance is already hard enough, and I don't want to be more scared of something happening to my fiance. A lot of Koreans I know don't have any fear regarding North Korea, and I tried to express that to my parents, but they completely put it down and tell me that they are delusional and they are blinded to the real problems. I'm honestly so upset, and I seriously don't know what to do. In my opinion, I think your parents are completely out of line. Your dad is a massive jerk, and you are completely right. He's trying to fearmonger you instead of, I don't know, focusing on issues in our own country, because trust me, here in America, we've got plenty of problems we gotta fix first. And it really seems like he's only bringing this up to try and dissuade you from getting married to this guy. Like, that is seriously not okay, and that is incredibly toxic. And personally, I think you have it right. You're trusting someone from South Korea who has a much clearer view of what's happening on that side of the planet. Like, if there's anybody who's delusional and doesn't know what they're talking about, it's your dad. He doesn't live there. He literally doesn't understand any of the nuance of living in South Korea, and he is completely out of line to assume that South Koreans are delusional to what's happening, because I'm pretty sure they're the most qualified to understand exactly what's happening. Also, it really seems like he's only doing this to try and push your buttons. Like, your reaction is all he wants. He just wants you to get upset, so of course he's gonna bring up all these articles that are incredibly scary just to try and not only mess with you, but also prevent you from going to South Korea. And that is honestly so unacceptable. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be putting him on an information diet right away. This guy is not gonna know anything about what I'm actively doing, and since this guy seriously can't be supportive in any kind of way, then this is the result that he's gonna have to live with. Am I the jerk for refusing to be adopted by my stepmother just to make the family look better in the eyes of the extended family? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad got married to Eve last year. Eve is not her real name, but she does have 2 kids. Her son is 4 now, and her daughter is 2. There's a lot of deep stuff in Eve's background and in the kids with their paternal side of the family, but they really had nobody other than Eve until my dad and Eve met. Once they got married, my dad adopted them, and then my dad's relatives didn't want the kids to be treated the same as the rest of the grandkids, and told my dad they would never mean as much to them as the rest of the biological family would. So he told them to get lost, and he cut ties with them. When all 3 sides were basically not in the picture, my dad asked my mom's family if they would embrace my step-siblings as family and treat them the way they would with me, because they were now siblings, and that my family and I love them, so it was important to him to see them being embraced by the family. Well, my family actually asked me if what my dad said was true, and I told them that it was not. I said I hardly even knew the kids, let alone love them. So my family told my dad they would never see my step-siblings as their grandkids. I should also make it clear that my dad and maternal family did not remain close or like family after my mom passed away. I still saw my family, but dad was never involved, and he would go to his own family when I was with mine. I never liked my dad's family, so it was never a huge deal to me to not see them, and it's not a huge deal to not have them around at all. They were always really annoying about how girly I am, and they could never believe I would want to have a manly job when I graduate. Eve was pretty depressed when she realized that she didn't make her kids' family all that much bigger, and that they had been rejected even more. So my dad decided that we would be the tightest unit, and we would all just choose each other, just so they would know that they were chosen and loved, despite all the rejection that they just faced. And that's when my dad decided that for this to work, I should let Eve adopt me. And let me just tell you something, I refused without hearing anything else. And I told him that Eve will never adopt me, and that I don't care how much of a nice story it paints for her kids, because I am not doing that for them. He told me that they are little, and Eve said it would mean so much to them. Dad told me that part of being a big sibling is putting the younger siblings first, but I told them the kids were never going to be my priority, and I would never go out of my way for them like that. Dad offered a compromise then of me writing and signing a contract saying that I would always be their big brother, and I was so lucky to choose 2 awesome siblings, which I said no to as well. Then then the adoption stuff was pushed even more. Eve tried telling me that I would still be able to call her Eve most of the time, but just to call her mom in front of her kids. Dad then said I was being selfish for refusing to do this and reiterated that the kids should be our priority. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I really think your dad and Eve are being really obnoxious here. Like, you have made it very clear that you're not interested in being adopted, and yet these people are trying to push it on you just so they can look good. And it doesn't matter what they're trying to say, honestly, I really think they're only doing this for appearance. They want to make it look like everybody in the family's on board, and that the whole family is just happy and really enjoying their time together. And obviously that's a lie. Obviously there's a lot of contention going on, because both of the families have turned their backs on your step-siblings and your stepmom. But with all things considered and all of that stuff that really is outside of your control, in my opinion, I think it's awful that they would try to force you to get adopted by Eve. That is incredibly unacceptable, and I really don't think you deserve that in the slightest. Today, I messed up by reading Facebook messages from my ex-girlfriend of 10 years ago. And even though I have a wife, a kid, and a very successful career, I feel very depressed, and I now really regret looking at all those messages. Here's what happened. Okay, so today, out of boredom, I logged into Facebook for the first time in many years. I ended up going to my Facebook messages and seeing a bunch of old messages. Out of curiosity, I scrolled down to see how far back I could go, and it was super interesting to me. It was like a time capsule. Well, eventually though, I stumbled upon messages between me and my ex-girlfriend. As a bit of background, she was the one that got away. We were high school sweethearts that continued dating through college, and we dated for nearly 5 years. We were head over heels in love with each other. Her family loved me, and my family loved her. This may sound cliche, but I knew from the day I met her that I wanted to marry this girl. She was sweet and kind, incredibly beautiful and smart and very thoughtful. She was also honest, funny, and we just got along so well together. It's like we really were made for each other. Well, we ended up going to different colleges, and we were both each other's first, and she clearly got a lot of attention from other guys, and she started to think if I was really going to be her first and last. And as a result, she wanted to see what else is out there for her. And in hindsight, I don't blame her, and I'm not mad at her for it. We met at a young age, and she had every right to do this. Anyways, it took me many years to get to a point where I wasn't sad over the breakup. We broke up in 2013, and 2017 was when I was at a point where I could think about our relationship, and it didn't make me sad. Well, that is until today. Now, I still think about our relationship very frequently, and I don't think I will ever completely get over this relationship, but I still can't let that put a pause on my life. I needed to accept that it was over, accept that I may never fully heal from it, and just move on with my life. So I did, and I'm at a point where I'm now happy and I no longer feel sad thinking about the relationship. But it all came tumbling down after I read those messages. She is married with a child, and I am married with a child. I have a successful career, a house, and a great relationship with my wife. I love her and my son, I really do. But reading those messages reminded me of how different my love for my high school sweetheart really was. I will never experience that sort of love ever again. Just her existence in my life made me feel so fulfilled, like nothing else mattered. Reading those messages reminded me of how much we loved each other and what that all felt like. It made me miss those days that I'll never ever be able to get back. So honestly, the moral of this story is that you don't want to read old Facebook messages if you're not ready to relive the past. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. You read up on these old messages and you're looking back on your life and you're like, man, I wish I still had that in some kind of way. And I can completely understand that, and I know you're not like implying that you're gonna cheat on your wife or anything like that. Obviously, and I think you know this, all that is better in the past, and you should leave it in the past and not pursue it or anything like that. But also, it's important to know that you're in a much better place now. You have a wife and a kid and a really successful job, and sure, you don't really feel that love that you used to have when you were a kid, but at least you can look forward and like focus on the people that you do have in your life. So hopefully you don't look through any more messages, because I think this is only going to cause more problems. And I think you're better off just looking forward and trying to make the best of the future. I discovered that my partner lied to me about his parents being dead, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm not even sure where to begin with this, because there are so many moving parts to this, so please just bear with me. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I met my partner who's 24 years old in February last year in a college class. We instantly connected, and one of the main things we connected on was my work in child welfare. He had told me that he spent a lot of time in foster care, as his mother and father both passed away when he he was a baby, and it was one of the first things we deeply talked about together. Over the months, we never really established we were in a relationship, but now we're at a point where we call each other our partner, and we are seeing each other exclusively. However, it has always felt like something was holding us back from becoming official, and I think it's because he lied to me about his family being dead. Basically, a few months into us going out, I started to notice some gaps in things that he would tell me, such as names of family members, details about his childhood, etc. And he was very, very weird with social media. Well, one day, I went to look him up on Facebook, and I simply could not find his profile. This was a bit odd, as I remember I looked him up a while back, and I was able to find him. So I had my friends look him up, and they found him no problem. We believe he blocked me because on his page and tagged post, he was interacting with people who have the same last name as him, and had posted about him being the younger brother, and one woman posted how she was a proud mother of him. Now, this would check out if he had a foster family, but he asserted time and again that he never had a foster family, and still has his biological father's last name. Now, this is where things get really weird. He told me that his middle name was the first name of his dad, and that he looked exactly like his dad when he was younger. Well, when we went on Facebook, we found a guy with his middle name as his first name, as well as the same last name, and this guy looked exactly like my partner and had pictures of him on his page. After some more searching, we found public records that showed that he lived with this older guy and older woman who we are now certain are his parents. The worst part of this is that we were in the car one day and his phone connected to Bluetooth and he had an incoming call with the screen name of Dad. Now, I pretended that I had not seen it because I just froze in confusion, and since then I've been stuck with what to do. Now, there is a lot more we found, but the main thing here is that I found a lot that shows he lied to me about these really huge things. I tried easing the waters recently and asked why I couldn't find him on Facebook, and he made a comment along the lines of saying, "What's really on my social media? I am nervous of finding you." And then he would make another comment the next day where he would say, "What did you find online when you looked me up?" And I just really don't know what to do here. I don't know how to approach this with him or if I even should. I am starting to think that I love this person even despite this lie, and it's all just been eating me up inside. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this guy lied to you and said that his parents are dead, but now that you have found out the truth, you still love this guy? Seriously, what in the world is going on here? If I had a significant other who lied to me straight up and said, "Yeah, my family's dead," only to then find out that they lied about that fact about them, I would be in such a state of shock, I don't even know what I would do besides break up with them. Like, seriously, in my opinion, this is a huge red flag. No one just lies about their parents dying without some kind of like weird motive. Unless he's part of witness protection or secretly a part of the CIA or something like that. Like, there's no real excusable reason why this guy would lie and be like, "Yeah, my parents are dead." Like, that's crazy to me. I can't be the only one who thinks that, right? Like, this behavior is just really creepy in my opinion. And I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever give him the time of day. Because in my opinion, it really seems like this guy concocted this weird story about being an orphan just so he could gather sympathy from you based on your work. Like, he literally lied to you just so you would fall in love with him. And it also makes me wonder, like, what else has this guy lied about? Are there other hobbies that you supposedly have in common that you've never seen him participate in, yet he would swear that he loves all these other things that you like as well? Like, this guy sounds like a massive con artist, and I can't imagine anyone sticking with him. So hopefully you can figure this out, because in my opinion, this is incredibly creepy, and there is literally no good excuse for someone to lie about their parents being dead. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.